Call our regular meeting of City Council to order. Big rain over the weekend. Great for our agricultural community and everybody else in town, so it was nice to have. First order of business, item 2, new councillor business. 2-1, Councillor Wilbur.
Yes, so Councillor Schumann has represented us on UBCM and Northern BC as a director at large, and if she'd like let her name stand, I'd like to nominate her again this year to run for director at large for UBCM.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Schumann Wilbur. Seconded by Councillor Parslow. Discussion?
Well, I guess first we have to have her confirm if she let her name stand.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, I could probably run one more year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Wilbur?
I'll just continue on because I started.
Thank you.
So we had the Access Awareness Barbecue, and I think probably we had about 300 people or close to show up for that. And so thank you to Duncan Redfern, my co-cook, and all the volunteers from Society for Community Living. And I do not remember the gentleman's name that won the 50-50 draw, but he won close to $8,000. So
Nice.
that was that amount for him and that amount for the society. So it was a really good deal, and they're looking forward to running that 50-50 draw again next year. And they did. It was a lot of work. They did a lot of work, and they had painting. It was actually a really good turnout, and the weather was nice, so it was a good day. Yesterday, I met with about 35 investors and just kind of toured around Dawson Creek and showed them different places and things we have to offer as services in our community. So they're quite impressed, and I was happy to hear that one young lady in LPN that had come on the last tour actually got her application into Northern Health and actually got a job. So her mother has bought a place and she'll be moving here to be working in Dawson Creek and Fort St. John. So that was nice to hear, and nice to see that some of the younger people from the Lower Mainland are actually looking at moving north. So that's great. And I love our new webpage look. I don't know if anyone's looked at it, but very clean, very nice, easy, accessible. I like it. The other thing, we had some mayors come up and visit us on their way to FCM, and so they've put out a mayor's challenge, and it was Richard Stewart from Coquitlam, Mike Clay from Port Moody, and Greg Moore from Port Coquitlam. And it's around the Terry Fox Run, so they're challenging every community to raise $1 for every person in their community. So their thought is there's about approximately 35 million people in Canada. $1 per person is 35 million raised for cancer research. So Mr. Moore has said there is a group in Dawson Creek that's interested in helping run the Terry Fox Run. I know the city used to do it, and we're not doing that anymore, but I've asked him to put me in contact with that group and see if there's some way I can help them, or maybe get them in contact with someone else that could kind of lead the forge for them. But I'd really like to take the challenge. I think we could do it and help them raise that money for cancer research.
Thank you. Yeah, I think for us at $13,000 or $14,000 for us for the great cause.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the history of the Terry Fox Run has been in terms of what they've raised in the past, but I'm sure it would be, because I remember last year, I think it was one lady raised over $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 herself. So.
Yeah, and I think she has for the last couple of years. So
Good.
I think it's an achievable goal. So
All right, so you'll keep us posted.
I will. I'll gather some more information and bring that back.
Thank you,
And,
Councillor
that's
Wilbur.
all I have.
Thank you. Further councillor business? Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to attend the Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference in Edmonton. And as usual, it was a very interesting event. Lots of different workshops, study tours. One that I went on that I found very interesting, of course, was we went to NATE and checked out their alternative energy program. They have a 2-year program there that turns out, well, basically people like our Peter, who, so energy managers, and so that was very interesting. The other thing that I really appreciated this year was leading up to the federal election, we got to hear in person from all of the federal leaders, of course, except for Stephen Harper. He never does show up. But it was very interesting and well worth the time, I think. And the other thing was, last week we attended the municipal days in Grand Prairie, Mayor Bumstead and I, and that's always fun. They put on a pretty big event for their municipal days. They have all their staff out, their fire department, their like everybody's out there, and they put on a big barbecue. But they host us in the beginning, and this year they sent us off on a little scavenger hunt of sorts, and it was all based around dinosaurs and things like that, because they're of course getting ready to open up their dinosaur museum in September. And if anyone's interested, I got the card from the director of that soon-to-be museum, and he said if we would like to go on a little tour prior to the opening, that he would be happy to provide that for us. So I've got his card, and if anyone's interested, we can go on a little tour of the museum before it opens. And that's all.
Thank you. And as just to follow along on that, on the Curry Museum in Grand Prairie, on the Dinosaur Museum at Wembley, they're looking to come and partner with Tumblr, the South Piece, Tumblr, Dawson, to coordinate the aspect of tourism for our region and our community, and incorporate the Dinosaur Museum as a part of that with Tumbler Ridge and the Highway 52. And I know Don McPherson, the mayor of Tumbler, has been really promoting that aspect of trying to develop the whole circle route of Highway 52 around the Peace region. And so the Curry Museum are also interested in getting involved in that with us and leveraging that for us as well. So it was a good afternoon. Thank you. Further councillor business? Councillor Parslow, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Are you going to be sharing a bit about the Federation of Canadian Municipalities?
I'll fill in at the under mayor's business. Yep.
Under mayor's business. Okay. So I'll leave the asset management to don't want to steal your thunder.
Whatever you got.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. I attended FCM as well, and it was a well-organized conference. I've always, my past career, Edmonton was my source of mentorship, and I think that whole culture of being with it, progressive, and just really being good hosts is well inbred into that city. I attended a variety of things. One that I found very interesting was the presentation on asset management. I am going to make just a couple of comments about that, but leave most of it to you. Some statements that were made by the staff from Edmonton, and then I have circulated some materials to staff and some linkages. The whole purpose of asset management, I like this quote, is to move from reactive mode to having insight on long-term objectives to make strategic long-term investments. The fiscal gap of asset management includes both renewal and growth issues, and I think we need to remember that we want to keep moving forward as well as a city. We need lots of data to make decisions. We need to, and I love this one, we need to focus on the pain of discipline rather than the pain of regret. We have stewardship responsibilities beyond the now. Give yourself the tools to move away from short-term thinking to long-term thinking. Educate the public. I love this one. The alternative to asset management is chaos and horse trading. I'd like you to remember that one. There's lots to share about asset management, and staff is well on top of this, I know, and things will unfold. I also attended a session from relationship building to mutual prosperity, the future of First Nations municipal collaboration. An awful lot of material on that as well, and I really appreciated the comments of the Commissioner for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Of course, the report's been just recently released. Prosperity is greater when the disparity between rich and poor is reduced. Marie Wilson, the commissioner who was present, she's from Vancouver Island, some statements that really got my attention. The abuse at residential schools was more damaging and widespread in its effects and longer lasting than previously understood. The very existence of these schools was abusive. As many as 6,000 children may have died in them, meaning that residential school inmates, I like the word inmates there, use of it, don't like the word, but it's appropriate use, these inmates were as likely to lose their lives as Canadians in the military serving during the Second World War. There's lots we need to talk about that. There are some recommendations for municipalities that flowed from that study. What I appreciated, I think you made reference to this, the presentation on what Canadians can expect in the upcoming election. And I think the one thing that I think we need as council to remember, the surveys clearly show that the number one expectation and desire of Canadians is a good quality of life, supported by a prosperous economy. And, when we deal with our fiscal gap issues, we must remember those two, I think, two elements. Again, one could spend a whole morning talking about that. I went on 2 tours, as well as a number of other functions, but 2 tours, and both were great. And I would like, one was about a showcase. The Edmonton showcased a variety of programs that they support to improve the affordable housing options across the city. And I brought back some very short DVDs, and I would like to, with permission of council, have a little section on the June the 29th, I believe it is, cow meeting. Because we have these issues as well. We have the issues of, housing for professionals, first-time buyers, low-income people, transition houses. So I just like to share some of those videos and just discuss it a little bit. I'm suggesting maybe 3/4 of an hour, just for us to just get a bit of a flavor and have a discussion. And I also then went to, on Monday morning, a tour of 118th Avenue, Alberta Avenue, revitalization of a community through the arts. Really, it's about the cooperative efforts of business, municipality, and grassroots arts organizations, and how they've transferred a troubled section of Alberta into a much less troubled section. And I without any permission, I bought for the city, I just saw this at one of the art centers they had there, this video, and Shaylee's going to take it home and look at it, because I think some of the things that, you've established, Shaylee's a liaison to a health committee. We know we have all sorts of housing issues. We have affordable housing issues. I'd like to sort of see how we could use this. I'm thinking, but subject to what Shaylee, I don't want to step on Shaylee's toes, but rather come alongside in that sense, is that, what does this say to us, about revitalization of some parts of our community? Are there some lessons to be learned? Where does all the work of Spickers, Dawson Creek Society for Community Living, Aboriginal housing, revitalization of downtown, how does that all fit? And is there something to be learned in this? So I'm thinking that after Shaylee's had a look at it, and then there's small town love as well. So maybe there's so many different things that this may link to, that we might want to have a special meeting and invite some community partners to it. But this is an hour and a half DVD, so I'm not taking this to a cow meeting, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, this is just a bit of a flavour. I came back with lots of ideas, a sense of, had a lot of chats to people, as everyone does. There's so many challenges facing municipalities across the country, and I like the spirit of this conference. It isn't just big city. I like the statement, that cities, whilst they might be the energy of the country, small towns and rural areas are the fuel of the country. So I like that one.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say for now on it.
Thank you. Jim?
Through your worship, then there should probably be a motion to forward the affordable housing item to Cal on the June 29th.
Okay.
I'd like to
make that by way
motion.
of motion. Seconded, Councillor Rogers. Discussion? For me, I think, it's funny you mentioned that, because I met with Spickers and the Aboriginal Health and Housing Society about a week ago before I left, and talked exactly about that, right, in terms of just understanding some of the issues that Transition House is facing and Spickers are facing, and homelessness within the community, to get a better kind of sense of it. And so certainly it was very worthwhile. And so we've talked about, as we get our, and Shaylee and I have had some conversation about this, of how we structure that health committee and what some of the strategic components are going to be, and what some of the pieces of it. But homelessness, housing, access is a real critical one, I think, from a number of different perspectives. So I really appreciate the fact that you've brought that forward, and we can bring that through, but also we'll have bring it back to council.
Well, maybe a better idea is if Shaylee then passes this on to somebody else, so that all council
us
members have
Yeah.
seen this
Sure.
in the comfort of their own homes.
Good.
And we think about, well, how do we use this? And maybe that could be this, if we ought to do this before the next cow meeting. Anyway,
We'll
so Shaylee,
circulate.
perhaps you pass it on to the mayor,
Yep.
and then you can
Yeah,
pass it on
we'll get it through to
yeah.
everybody in council.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Wilbur?
Well, I too attended FCM, and that just flipped my mind when I was speaking off. But I'm glad Charlie was able to attend that, because it was full when I tried to get into it. So I'm really glad that someone did. But alongside with that, before I went to FCM, I met with the Health Advisory Committee at Northern Lights College. So that's another bridge for us, and that is part of their discussions too. So I think it's a very large picture, but I think it's doable. But one thing I think that aligned with that was my one study tour was WAVE, which is a Women in Leadership initiative with the City of Edmonton. And really how they looked at is design, not so much equality for women, but when moving forward in designing their community, are their women safe? Are they feeling safe on their transportation? Do they feel safe walking on their streets? Do they feel safe where their housing initiatives are? So I think that all kind of branches together. So perhaps with that video, I'll also pass on the slideshow from that initiative, and we can kind of look at it together and have that discussion. So I do appreciate Charlie going.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Parslow?
Yes, we often acknowledge accomplishments in this community by teams or individuals. And as president of the Peace River chapter of the Federation of Canadian Artists, this community has again been successful in the arts nationally. A person just won first prize in the national show held in Vancouver, so we should congratulate Mary Parslow.
Nice. Congratulations.
Bit of self-interest there.
I better do that one.
We're proud of her anyways.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further councillor business?
Sure, yeah.
Anything else, councillor business? Thank you. So next item, we have minutes. We have our minutes of our regular council meeting, May 25th, 2015 for adoption. Councillor Schumann, seconder Wilbur. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the minutes of our special meeting of council, May 29th, 2015 for adoption. Counselor Schumann, seconded. Counselor Rogers. Errors and omissions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? Correspondence 5-1. We have a letter from Doug Scott regarding the definition of light industrial zoning. Counselor Schumann?
For information.
Move that we receive for information. Seconded. Counselor Wilbur. Discussion.
Yeah, there are a few points towards the end of that letter around ways of mitigation, and I just would like to, if and ever we get a development permit, have staff just reflect on those and see if they are reasonable things to sort of interface with any development permit. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 5-2, we have an email from Jeff Ginter, General Manager of the Dawson Creek Curling Club, regarding the Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program. Councillor Parslow?
Well, I think we should write a letter of support for this. We are moving forward with curling. This aligns with the long-term development of the curling club facility there. So I think we should support it in any way we can.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Parslow, seconded Councillor Schumann. Discussion. Councillor Wilbur?
I just think the city should show support to any of our groups in town that provide services and healthy choices of lifestyle if they're applying for any of this funding. I just think we should support anyone that's applying. We were asked to submit it to the community, to all the groups, and if they're applying, then we should support them in doing so.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
I was just going to say the same thing. I just really appreciate the initiative from the Dawson Creek Curling Club regarding this. It's a good thing.
Perfect. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We have a letter from Carolyn Hadama, President of the Dawson Creek Seal Swim Club, regarding a request. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, I would move that staff check into whether or not this would work out and give them the permission to have their camping. I think we've done it before.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been an issue.
And they're
So,
asking for the meal
motion
as
to
well.
proceed.
Oh.
There's another ask,
And there's a second ask to that as well in terms of...
holding the meal at the parking lot.
Oh, yeah,
So you're moving that?
sure.
Seconded? Councillor Parslow, discussion. Councillor Rogers, did you have a...
Yeah, I was just wondering, where are we here? They wanted to use the lobby in case it rained or something like that. What's our policy for something like that? If it did rain?
Yeah.
And like, does our policy say that we're allowed to do that? And I guess that'd be a question through your worship to administration.
Sure. Jim?
Through your worship, your policy is that you don't provide this free to anyone. That's your current policy. There would be a fee for it under your current policy.
Councillor Rogers?
So therefore, I'd be in favor of the number 1, but not number 2.
Okay. Councillor Schumann?
I think that we ought to give staff the chance to speak with them, and perhaps they would be happy to pay whatever the fee is to have it indoors if it were to rain. So I think that we should leave that up to staff to have those discussions with the group.
Okay. But I think the motion is that we're going to provide it to them. Jim?
So through your worship, I understand the motion to be free. If it's left to staff, of course, we have no
Yeah.
authority to provide anything free.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, it's not my intention about the free. I mean, I missed that point. Parking lot, yes, but I'm not in favour of waiving our fees policies.
Councillor Schumann?
So I think that staff can speak to the group, and if they need that space, they could pay the fee. My motion would reflect that the space would have a fee.
Okay. So on that, and we don't need to,
So
that's part of
let's-
the policy, so it's, they can do that, right? Yeah. Good. Any further discussion? So the motion is that we are going to allow them to host or use the parking lot, and if it rains and inclement, then, and they need the use of the indoor space, then staff will work with them for the appropriate fee as per our policy. Thank you. Any further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 5.4, we have a letter from Jerry Linklater, first annual Dawson Creek Music Festival, regarding a request for some support that he is looking for. Councillor Parslow?
Before I make the motion, I'd like to hear about staff about these asks, if they can be accommodated easily. So, question to staff.
Through your worship, the removal of unsafe trees, that sort of thing, that's something we need to do anyway. The cutting of the grass is a regular schedule. We'll just make sure it is proximate to the event. So the first two items are just business as usual. We can certainly place garbage cans there. We place extra ones out that weekend for Mile Zero Cruisers. That just leaves the request for sponsorship, which is not within staff's purview.
Okay, Councillor Rogers, do you have any insight into that in terms of
Well,
working with Jeremy?
I had written down the cleanup of the trees, that's regular park maintenance. And number 2 was regular maintenance. Regarding the garbage cans, I was gonna say that if the city had some garbage cans, I would go and pick them up and I'd put them out there. I do know I have 3 barrels at home. I talked to Jeremy about this already. I have 3 blue 45-gallon drums at home. I could paint recycling on them, and we could utilize those. And as far as the bling goes, I don't know. I'll leave that up to council. I think that this is the first year for this. I don't think that it would be appropriate to throw money at it or anything like that. But if there were some punch cards or something like that that he was asking for the pool, I don't know if we've done that before with other groups or not. What does council think?
Yeah, that goes to the issue of sponsorship, grant, or and that's our policy. It would have to we would have to apply that sponsorship or grant policy to it, I think.
Yeah, and I'm not in favor of grants or anything like that, so I'll work something out with it.
All right, so we'll go, then the request that from administration's perspective is 1, 2, and 3 are part of the regular maintenance and the regular routine business of what we do. Garbage cans and all of that stuff is going to go out as a result of the Mile Zero Cruisers event downtown anyway, so that's a non-component that we need to add to an addition. And so we've got 1, 2, and 3 that I'm assuming we'll move forward with. Councillor Roger?
Well, I was just, Your Worship, I'd like to just say for number 3, if it's okay with administration, if I go and pick up the garbage, and I'll make sure that the site is cleaned up afterwards, rather than having city staff do something like that.
So as part of the volunteer group, I guess, Jim, is that?
Yes, Your Worship, exactly the same for the Mile Zero Cruisers. The volunteers do their own.
Yeah. All right, cool. Good. So you guys will look after that then?
Yep.
Awesome. So 1, 2, and 3 are basically the
So
components. Moved by Councillor Parslow, seconded Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 5, 5.5. We have a letter from the Premier in regards to the upcoming UBCM convention, and wondering if we want a meeting request. So I'm going to pass it back to council in terms of thoughts. So I'll jump in. I absolutely intending on going. Pause, hesitate, I'm getting in. We haven't, I think, taken much direct approach to the UBCM for request for meeting, but I think there's 2 or 3 things that are going on specifically for our community, our region, that I think are worthwhile for us to meet with the Premier and ensure we promote it. And I think about that from the perspective of number of grants, the access to some of the needs for not only our community but our region, transportation, our hospital, the college. We're working hand in hand with MLA Bernier, but I think it's a great opportunity for us just to even support that message. Councillor Schumann?
So I would move that we request a meeting with the Premier while we're at UBCM.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann, or Wilmer, Councillor Parslow?
Well, in addition to that, I was wondering if we want to meet with the minister responsible for housing, BC Housing.
Rich
Who's that?
Coleman is the Deputy Premier and Minister responsible for housing as well as natural gas. And
We might be in a position to, I would think, to want to talk about housing issues in the community.
yeah, good point. And I think all of those requests we have effective today. We've got Minister Oakes as the next one, but I'm sure all of those requests are coming forward.
So can I add Minister Coleman, perhaps, to that
Sure.
list?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you...
No, I agree, because I was, sorry to just butt in, but I was going to add that maybe we should be meeting with some of the ministers as well, like even the Minister of Agriculture comes to mind to find out what's moving forward with the 2 zones and what's happening, how does that reflect on our area. So maybe there's 2 or 3 we want to meet with. I know in the past we've maybe met, I think, 1 in the last UBCM, but maybe we should kind of reflect on what's going on in our communities and have that conversation with those ministers and just.
So if we make the motion that we're going to meet with the Premier and those ministers that Council feel we would be beneficial to meet with, and I'll coordinate that list and then flip it back to Council once we have it all I get the feedback from you guys, and then that way we can do it all at once. Does that work?
Yeah.
Jim?
Could the motion give you the authority to identify the issue? Because we can't meet with them without
Yeah.
identifying an
Yeah.
issue.
So what I'll do is if everybody could just send me say if you have a specific issue or a specific concern that you want to have us address when we're at UBCM with the minister, who it is and what the issue is, and then I'll coordinate it and we'll send us one request out, and I'll flip that back to you guys with it. Does that work? Okay. So that by way of the motion. Sorry if we. Perfect. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Seconded? Does it second?
It was seconded, yeah. All in favor? Opposed? And I'll try and get the last one done if we can. And so it's exactly the same thing for Minister Oakson, and that's encapsulated in 5.5, that she's requesting, same thing. So we don't need to do that, anything with that other than
For information.
receive for information. Seconded, Councilor Roger. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. So we're at 9 o'clock or just a little bit after, so our first delegation, they're not here yet, so I'm going to move.
They're here?
Yes,
Oh, they are here now? Both of us? Solar Day?
solar energy.
Peter Nielsen from the city of Dawson Creek and Walter
Okay, no, sorry, the other.
Andry. The other gentleman isn't here yet? Okay. So we'll move to 6.2. We have Arlene Thorpe from the Kiwanis Club of Dawson Creek in attendance regarding the presentation of our Community Service Award for the 40th Annual Kiwanis Trade Show. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm just fine. Going to outside.
Welcome to City Council. Thanks.
What I have here is a Community Service Award on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Dawson Creek. This was our 40th annual Kiwanis Trade Show this year, and we just wanted to present to different individuals, the city being one, and mayor and council. It's our honorable testimonial of excellence of volunteerism and community service ensure the success of the 40th annual Kiwanis Trade Show. And we just, if it wasn't for the city, we wouldn't be able to do what we do at the trade show. So this is to say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know. 41 is going to be a little different. We're going to change up some things, and that's about all I'm going to say until later on. I'm going to keep people guessing. Thanks very much.
So I want to say,
Arlene, see you.
you know, the
Thanks, Arlene.
event couldn't happen without the city, and to me, any city events that go on here in our community happen because of citizens like Arlene. And there she is, President of the Legion, Kiwanis Club, seniors groups. And so anytime you see stuff going on in our community, I always see Arlene very visible. And so, Arlene, thank you so much on behalf of City Council for this, as well as for all the work you do on behalf of our community.
Well, thank you for those
Thank
kind words.
And your first delegation is here now, Your
Perfect. So our next delegation is Peter Nielsen from the City of Dawson Creek, and Walter Andre, Canadian Solar Cities, and Joanne Dewick, Peace Energy Cooperative, in attendance regarding our Solar Day proclamation.
I think Joanne's in Vancouver taking
Oh, is
in
she?
some kind of opera.
Welcome, Peter. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Oh, Dawn. Good morning.
I'm not Joanne Dewick.
No, you're not Joanne Dewick.
I'm not.
Close enough. Peace Energy.
So come up front and I'll read our proclamation. Whereas throughout history, people worldwide have celebrated the summer solstice and recognized the power and energy of the sun and its importance to all life on the planet. And whereas on June 27th, the City of Dawson Creek will be promoting solar technologies and sustainable communities throughout our community, British Columbia, and Canada. Now therefore I do hereby proclaim June 27th, 2015, Solar Day in Dawson Creek, and encourage all residents in and around the surrounding community to celebrate the benefits of solar energy.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Walter. Don, thank you.
Thank you.
Now you guys have the floor.
Well, as a chair of Canadian Solar Cities, we're pleased to be here in Dawson Creek today, and we are very grateful for the support that's been shown by the city over the last several years. We appreciate all of the time and efforts and the commitments of previous councils and this council here to embrace this technology and to utilize it within the city and support it as much as they possibly can. We look forward to continuing our mission, which is to work with other cities within British Columbia and Western Canada and wherever else cities are interested in signing up and meeting our 10-point criteria. And again, thank you for this recognition this year, and we look forward to a continuing relationship.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you guys here, and obviously the work that Peter's doing and has done, and the work that this guy over here has done for our community and our region is nationally acclaimed. And so we appreciate the efforts that you guys have put into it and look forward to continuing to build on that in the future. Thank you. Councilor Schumann?
Yeah, I just want to say that Dawson Creek is being widely recognized as a community that is adopting solar energy initiatives, not just at the city level, but in the community level, the college, et cetera, et cetera. There's all sorts of that going on here in Dawson Creek. And I've actually been invited this summer while I'm down in Victoria touring my little daughter through the universities to go speak in North Cowichan about the different initiatives we've got going on up here. So, people are ringing us up and asking us, how are you doing this? What are you doing? And it's really exciting on the Canadian Solar Cities front. We've got City of North Vancouver, City of Colwood, the City of Squamish is coming on board, and the Souk First Nations. So it's really taking off in BC, and the price of solar energy is coming down every year, and we're really going to see the province benefit from that, I think.
Thank you. Councilor Parsons?
I'd just like to share something here that grabbed my attention at the FCM. I'm going to say the wonderful leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, announced I have forgiven her for her distraction, yes. She shared, announced the first solar scholarship. Do you remember that, Dale? Yeah. Just something I think that golf maybe use your influence, Don, with Dick Powell. If you need any help, just call me. The secondary school students, I believe, was it Sydney Secondary School? One of the schools in her riding raised money to install solar panels at the high school, and then the savings in energy are a solar scholarship for future generations of students. I thought that's a wonderful idea. Something we don't have, maybe we can be the second one.
And maybe they could use that scholarship to go to that awesome program at NATE, which is supposedly the only program in the country that offers this very well-rounded alternative energy program. Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
I just want to speak on behalf of Peace Energy Cooperative, based here in Dawson Creek. We were Western Canada's first renewable energy cooperative, so just in case nobody knew. We've been around now for well over a decade. I'll just say we're working on the ground to solarize, the grassroots level, to solarize this area in Dawson Creek, and we're actively marketing now solar power because it's become so very affordable now. And I'll just say we're getting a fantastic response. We're getting calls from all across the province. So there's a huge amount of interest in solar power and renewable energy all across the province. We can attest to that because we're very, very, very busy installing systems. You've probably seen a few solar roofs appearing around the community. Well, that's our work. So we're moving ahead aggressively, and we're getting a tremendous response among the general population. So just so you know, that's what's happened, and we're working hard on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate coming in this morning. Next item, 6.3, we have our library board members, Michael Dion, Fred Fedema, and Jenny Snyder, in attendance regarding the municipal library and the presentation on our new library flooring and shelving.
Hi, Jenny.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. It's not Fred Fedema.
I'll wait till I try.
Welcome. Fred sure cleans up nice. Good morning, you guys. Good morning. Floor is yours. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having us. We'll let the PowerPoint come up. Usually we're here with facts and figures. Not so much today. Here we're just going to show some pictures.
We like pictures,
Yes.
especially pictures of our library.
Yes, exciting.
We could talk about the under 17 championships if we want to. I like hockey. It's good.
Popcorn, coffee, sure.
We like that too. Maybe while we're waiting, I could say that we have had nothing but positive response at the library to the changes. We haven't heard one person say anything that they didn't like. They like everything. They just did say, please don't close again.
Right.
So we said we're trying.
Excuse us. Find that for you.
When does your summer stuff start up for the kids?
The last Monday of this month, we're starting a week early this year.
Yay.
Parents asked that we would start earlier, so we are, and yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, lots of making things with recyclable items, so yeah,
Nice.
it's going to be a lot of fun.
I have to wait now until I have grandbabies, Jenny, so that
Yes,
I can
you
bring
do.
them. My baby's 17 now, and so
I
she's
know.
kind of beyond the. But they sure did enjoy it when they were little.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The kids have a lot of fun. It's a very fun summer for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the highlight of our week always throughout the summer to come and get the new books and check off and get their little whatever they were doing that day. And
Yeah, no, it's good, and we do lots of activities with them, both indoors and out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a well-rounded program these days. So it's good.
maybe grandbabies won't be too long off for me.
I have some you can borrow.
Yes. Danielle's 24 now, so I should be getting one or two
One or
soon.
two. All six, you can borrow.
I'm not borrowing your grandchildren, I want my own. My little niece just had a baby and I was just like, me and Danielle went to visit and I was like, oh Danielle, you should get mommy one of these.
No, don't rush her.
And no. Well, she's 24. I mean, how long is she supposed to? Come
I
on.
had the same conversation with my kids on the weekend.
I don't want to be an old grandma. Like,
So you
let's
see
get
this,
with the program.
this is one, this is the company,
Okay.
and this is where it's located.
We have it.
These are
I
the
have
four.
it.
I was gonna say, yeah, I have.
Looks great.
If you're building,
Oh, wow.
and you undertake
Thank you, Brenda.
Interesting aside, part of our succession planning,
low income.
Pam Morris, our children's librarian, is taking her librarian's course. Part of that was
They give you a grant of
make
20,000.
PowerPoint presentations. So, Pam put this together for us. We're all kind of seeing it for the first time. We want to look at it and
Love the logo, just saying.
yeah, that again was a local girl, Jessie Olson did that for us. So we told her what we wanted in terms of, you know, it's local, it's the Peace Country, it's solid, it's part of the community. She knocked it out of the park the first time out.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna pretend like I know how to use this, but I don't think it's working.
Uh-oh.
We've got to do something about our technology in this place. Drives me crazy.
There we go.
There it is.
The logo we speak of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to council for allowing us to use the city's logo within the logo. Made a big difference for us. So before photos, we had lots of books and very old ratty carpet. Children's library looks very much like it did when I was a child. I think there was still a carpeted drum left. And boxes, boxes and boxes and boxes of books. We had been squirreling away money for years out of our budget in a vain attempt to catch up to the cost of an elevator. And it just was never gonna happen for us. We kept saving and saving because accessibility is if there's any downsides to the library, it's the one thing we hear all the time. You can't get to the second floor. Even if you're packing a kid in a stroller, it's a little tough, you know, so. When we started looking at new flooring, which is part of the upkeep of the building, some of that money that was there for the elevator, we said, okay, let's look at that. And we thought, well, if we're taking the flooring out and we have to take all the books off the shelves and we have to move all the bookshelves. Shelves were original, 1972, just weren't sure if they were gonna make the return trip, so we thought, we know lots of people, let's ask some people, see what we can do, see if we can raise some money for the shelves. So we went and got our quotes, went out to the local community, business community. I think that day, I was with my wife for lunch at Brown Social House. I talked to Darcy Dover, said, hey, what do you think? Sure, send me out for one. So 3 hours after the idea came, we had our first shelf donated. And it just spooled from there. We were asking people, how about a shelf? How much are they? Sure, put me down for 2. People were giving me checks at the bus depot, picking up freight. People were writing me personal checks for $10. Jenny said there's patrons that purchase shelves. They don't want their names out there. They're not doing it for that. But they showed up with $3,500 out of their personal bank accounts to help with the shelves. So that's all fine and well. We worked hard and we got that part done. Somebody had to move all these books. We didn't hire contractors to do it. The staff did it. Those boxes, I moved a truckload of them, probably 60, 70 pounds a piece, times hundreds and hundreds of boxes.
I can
So-
tell you're looking pretty buff.
Oh, look at me.
Where did you guys
I'm
put
nothing,
them
I'm
on?
nothing if not fit.
Where did they all go?
The books were kind of shuffled around, I believe, as the flooring went down.
There were 2 sea cans in the parking lot, and they filled those with books for mostly, yeah.
Some went to the old Hudson Bay store for the Rotary book sale. That's where most of those books came from. And then the shelving. Does the city know anything about projects not going exactly the way you planned?
No, we don't know anything
Too
about
soon?
that.
Too soon. Well, of course, we had the same issues. The shelves came, they were supposed to be on dedicated trucks. We open it up, it's full of riding lawn tractors. Oh yeah, your shelves are jammed in the back. Okay, great. Roseno Transport, like at the drop of a hat, said, sure, bring them over here. We'll unpack the truck here. Truck showed up 3 days early. We had crews lined up, volunteers to come unload the trucks. Driver showed up 3 days early. We went and talked to Roseno, 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. Sure, come on over. They unloaded the truck. They brought everything over. I don't think we've seen a bill. I don't think we will. It's fantastic. Like I said, the local business community stepping up to help. So our board member Jennifer Fox has her husband Mike McPhail there. Jenny, I think, has a few words to say for a couple of people that helped out with the process.
Yes, Fred Fedema more or less lived at the library for 3 months. He did everything that was needed to be done that he could do without question. Rounded up Rotarians, personal friends, family, and although we had an installation crew come from Calgary to put together some of the shelving, just because of the problems of delays shelving, they couldn't stay as long as they needed to. And Fred and Mike McPhail and Tom Adams, who was a teacher at the high school before he retired, put together a lot of the shelving, constructed it, and it's great. They did it really well, and I don't know what we would have done had they not stepped in to do that. But for everyone, for staff, the Rotarians, and Fred and his crews, it was just like a joint effort. Everybody was totally committed to it. We had flattened cardboard everywhere, so the floor wasn't damaged from all the shelving that had to be moved, and we had lots of laughs. We had 2 staff members who felt it was their job to keep morale up, no matter that we'd packed 3,000 boxes that day and we were not feeling very happy, and they did good. We laughed a lot of the time that we did that. It was, and Fred and Mike McPhail and Tom Adams were also part of that. They were amazing.
So we're well on our way to having a much more inviting space. One of the things the staff did, and they've always been very accommodating, if people can't make it to the 2nd floor, they've got their book elevator in the back, the little dumbwaiter. They'll bring them a whole cart of books. Have a look, see what you like. But it was the fiction books that were upstairs before. And I watched my wife pick out books, and sometimes the guy just has to fill out a kilt just right, and that's the book you want to read. Tough to do, bring down carts of books. So the staff made the decision to move all the fiction books downstairs, so anybody can come in and browse now. The nonfiction are upstairs, and if you're looking for a book on Napoleon, they will bring you books on Napoleon, and you'll find what you're looking for. So I think that was a nice workaround as far as accessibility goes. As far as planning for the library strategic plan, of course, that's still part of our goals, is that one day it will be an accessible facility. So we have some ideas, some thoughts on the matter. I'm sure you'll hear about it as time goes on. New magazine shelves. We have a dedicated teen section downstairs. Not saying that teens need someone to keep an eye on them, but this makes it a little easier just in case you need to keep an eye on them. Right by the front desk. We used to have a central computer station where you had to go look up your books. Now they're spread throughout the library, right on the end of the bookshelves. One of the other things that I think you see in the teen section, on the back wall there's a sort of like a bar, a little table. There's a couple of those throughout the library now with PowerPoints at them, so you can go and people can charge their phones or set their laptops up. That's a little more friendly if you want to sit down. Actually, there's the one by overlooking Kid Park. If you actually want to get some work done as well. So the space is a little more wide open. Staff did a great job culling the collection. We didn't need the law books from 1975 anymore and whatnot. All the new stuff's there, so a little more room on the shelves. Again, large print books, easier to get to. So we used to have a big, long computer station, which kind of gummed up the works when you walked into the building. Now you've got some space, a little more privacy, you're not sitting next to anybody anymore. The upstairs, just spectacular. And actually, been envying your art collection on your walls. I'm sure there must be some in storage that needs to see the light.
There's lots in storage at the
Yeah.
art gallery.
Yeah, we have lots of wall space now. The children's library got a major workover. This curved bookshelf, Jenny says, apparently has become the newest racetrack in town. No shortage of 5-year-old boys running around in circles. Leisure to get to, books and bags hanging, and this was the neat one. It's a flip bin. Kids can stand up there, it's their height, they can look through, pick the book they like, and away they go. And then, of course, the floor, when you have children crawling on them, babies and books, much easier to keep clean.
And still a nice little rug for them.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, virtual tour, of course, you're all welcome to come down and see it for yourselves in person.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So thank you guys so much for coming in and giving us the update. I was there Friday night with Councillor McFadden, and it honestly was so good to see the library fresh and new and spacious. It looks bigger, and just a credit to, as you guys have said, the staff, the volunteers, the community, because it doesn't happen without that, right? It just doesn't happen to have that capacity, and so we just really appreciate, obviously, the work that the board, the staff, Jenny, Fred, and Mike, obviously, in terms of Tom leading the charge. So a heartfelt appreciation on behalf of council to you guys for, I know how tough a project it was to get it pulled through, and you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.4, we have. So we have Dave Conway from BC Hydro in attendance regarding an update on the Site C project, and so Dave and I are old compatriots together from our days at ICBC, and Dave worked for us in the region and the capacity of the regional manager of loss prevention, road safety, and so he and I have a long history together, and it's a real pleasure to see him back into Dawson Creek, and welcome here today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I appreciate the time on today's council, and I'm glad you're not telling any stories about our old days.
Oh, he tells us.
You could probably.
Don't worry.
That's right. What happens on the boat stays on the boat and on the course.
Don't need you sharing my story.
Yeah, there is that too.
Oh.
So I appreciate the time on council's agenda today. I realize it's been a while since we've been out to do an update to council, and I appreciate the support council has provided by being part of the Regional Local Government Liaison Committee. Councillor Schumann, Councillor Wilbur has been there at times, and Your Worship, I know you caught the tail end of it, but your former colleague and now MLA Bernier. So we appreciate that. My intent today is just to provide you with a quick update about where the project sits, and to, if there's any questions, of course, answer those. So. And
We're not working again.
are we not working again? I thought the library had it all worked out for me. I was looking forward to that. So.
She took out that little thing, stuck it in there, took it out, stuck it back.
It's the thing with technology. When it works, it's great. When it doesn't, back to paper.
That's what my husband said the other day. Great thing about technology.
Maybe we need to update our technology.
Ah, good. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Maybe it's me.
Are you on a tour? Are you going to all the communities?
I am. Yeah. Yeah, this is the third presentation I will have done. Am I not in the right spot?
Yeah, it's just the back.
Okay. Okay.
The right arrow.
Maybe I'll stand up and do it.
Or I can do it for you.
Will it? No, I'll stand up and do it if that's okay.
Just, I don't know if you'll pick up the sound for our mic, Dave.
Will you be okay? I'm generally, people don't accuse me of being quiet. So, okay. Okay. So these are the items I'm just going to talk to you about today. So an update on project activities, the procurement, where we sit with that, what we're doing related to jobs in our public information program. So as you're well aware of the region, the project is located, you can see a black dash just to the southwest of Fort St. John. 7 kilometers from downtown Fort St. John, so very close, but located in the Peace River Regional District, straddles Area C and Area Area E. The yellow line is the transmission line. There would be 2 500 kilovolt lines in there. We're replacing the 2 138s that are presently in the corridor. The other thing I'd point out is the river would be on average 2 to 3 times wider. It would hold 2 to 3 days worth of water, and that's for head-on the turbines. All the water storage, of course, is in Williston upstream 100 kilometers, and that's approximately 2 to 3 years worth of water storage behind the reservoir. Earthville Dam, approximately 1 kilometer across, 60 meters high from the river bed, and your right side is the north bank, that's the Fort St. John side. Left side is the Chetwynd side, south bank, and you're looking upstream towards Hudson Hope, 83 kilometers to the Peace Canyon Dam just past Hudson Hope, and on your left is the Moberly River. Lying downstream is the generating station, 6 183 megawatt generators for a combined capacity of 1,100 megawatts, and the energy is 5,100 gigawatt hours a year, and that's water supply that determines your energy, it's your fuel. So I talked about the length and the width. There's a dual powered spillway, also lined downstream, and then an auxiliary spillway, which is passive. Water gets to a certain elevation, it flows over the top of it. So our principles for construction, first and foremost, is a safety culture. We don't want anybody injured or killed on the project, and that's what our goal is. Unlike past projects at the WAC Bennett Dam, where there were a number of people killed. Strive to minimize construction-related impacts. So if the project doesn't need land, we don't purchase it. If we can mitigate impacts, we'll do that. And we're trying to lessen those impacts as we go along. Our mitigation plan filed with the regulators is approximately 70 pages, and we're presently developing the detailed mitigation plans for each one. We're going to inform and notify about the construction as we go along, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that towards the end. We're in a two-way dialogue about the project. And we certainly will have a forum for elected officials and non-elected officials to pass on issues and concerns. And we're looking to promote the project for business opportunities for local, regional, and Aboriginal communities and workers. So you may have heard we recently announced a public information program. We're going to be doing open houses in 5 of the communities in the Peace region, including Dawson Creek, which will be Thursday, July the 16th at the Fixed Urban Grill Stonebridge. And I'd love to see you there if you're available. Come on out, and you can see where else we're doing the sessions. First year construction, these are the types of things we'll be looking at doing. Road improvements, primarily the access roads on the north bank, on the Fort St. John side, and those are the rural roads, so the Old Fort Road, 269 Road, 240 Road, 271 Road. Site power and telecommunications. The worker accommodation, which I'll speak to that a little bit more. Clearing fencing for security around the perimeter. Site boundary markers in the river. So we will close the river. We'll have river buoys in there, and we'll have a patrol boat because it will be an active work site. And so from a safety perspective, we don't want boats transiting the area, especially once we begin in-river works. There'll be a temporary construction bridge. We've already got air quality monitoring station in place, and we'll continue to use those. And we're continuing our field study work. Procurement and the project planning activities are presently underway, and the construction activities may vary depending on the timing and as we get permits. So these are the procurements we presently have. We have already announced the preferred worker accommodation. I'll talk about that a little bit more. South Bank Clearing, also named, we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute here. Procurement's underway. North Bank site preparation, we hope to announce a preferred proponent in the near future. Public road infrastructure, you may have heard last week MOTI tendered for the local roads, so that's out. The Highway 29 tendering will come later, not expected for probably another year. Main civil works, we have a procurement out. We have 4 shortlisted proponents. We expect to name the preferred proponent fall, early winter of this year. Turbines and generator procurement has been out for 2 years because turbines and generators have to be designed for each facility that they're put in, so they're not shelf ready. We expect to name that either the end of the year or early next year. And future procurement, you can see at the bottom, generating stations, spillways, public road infrastructure, that's Highway 29, transmission lines, the substation, and then there's other things as well, smaller ones. So worker accommodation, the preferred proponent that's been chosen is Two River Lodging Group, which is ACO Structures and Bird Design. It's for a camp that could accommodate 2,200 people, but for a peak workforce of 1,600. So there'll be a flexibility within that. We're directing anybody interested in either being a service provider for the worker accommodation or looking for employment to contact the proponent directly. So this is one of the big things we've seen with the announcements is we're seeing quite an influx of people interested in jobs and business opportunities through us, and we're redirecting to the proponent. So South Bank Clearing went to Paul Paquette and Sons out of Chetwynd, are 40 jobs. It's for clearing of approximately 620 hectares, along with 30 kilometers of temporary access roads, which will be decommissioned after the project is constructed. Upgrading and maintaining some existing road infrastructure there. You've got all the wood waste that it will be created, as well as the site preparation for the bridge on the south bank. And there's the contact information for Mr. Paquette. So hiring on Site C will be done by the companies, the preferred proponents, and you'll see more as we go along. And people can check that out on our website, sitecproject.com. This is the web page. You'll see at the top of the page there's business opportunities and job opportunities. So depending on whether you're looking for employment or you're looking to provide a service, you go there. And we have a business directory. So if you have a business, we're looking at directing people to sign up. Then if we have a tender or there's information that comes out about something you're particularly interested in, you will be notified about that directly. These are just a smattering of the jobs, and I won't run through them, but as you can see, a very wide range of positions, from biologists to safety people to culinary workers. Very extensive. Really looking for people with skills. The tendency in the past is for people to show up looking for a job and they don't have a skill set, and we really need to make sure that people showing up have the skill set at the time that's needed, because not all these things are needed at the same time. We will be promoting business-to-business networking opportunities. We're going to schedule those probably as early as late July for the first one on worker accommodation, and one in the fall for main civil works. We've done these in the past since 2011. We've had a very good response to this. The one we held here in Dawson Creek had over 60 businesses who came out for that to hear about the opportunities. We will be combining these with job fairs. And there's a lot of interest within the region for employment. We'd love to see people come and work on the project. A recent announcement for the Meikle Wind project in Tumbler Ridge, there were 300 people at that announcement, largest crowd I've ever seen, most of them looking for jobs, and we could have hired probably a significant number of them if the project had been underway. So that's one example within the region. From an ongoing perspective for regional and local government engagement, we will be continuing the local government regional committee that Executive Vice President Susan Yurkovich chaired. As you're well aware, Susan's no longer with us. She's leaving the end of June, but that will be chaired by the new project manager, Diane McSherry, and also MLAs Pym and Bernier will be a part of that committee too. We'll do a community liaison committee. This would be staff committee working with our people, as well as involving local agencies like the Ambulance Service, Northern Health, RCMP, to name a few. We'll continue with council updates like this, and we'll do direct engagement as needed with local and regional government staff. So construction communications, We are going out, and that's part of the open houses, is to find out how people want to be communicated with. I suspect from what we did back in 2007, we'll need to do everything because people take information in different ways. And so we will have web-based information. We will have a 1-877 number. We will have a direct email. And of course, people can always drop in to the consultation office. And we'll have specific information directed to construction activities as they're ongoing.
Those consultation offices are located in several different spots?
In
or?
2 spots, one in Fort St. John on 100th Street and 100th Avenue, right next to Whole Wheat and Honey, downtown. And the other one's in Hudson Hope at the Perk Center, within the Perk Center. So, Your Worship, that's my presentation, short and sweet, and I'd be more than happy to take questions from council.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? Well, the only one for me has to do with this, the whole procurement aspect. And as a project of this magnitude, as it unfolds, as we've faced in other industries, in the natural gas industry, as that development occurs, there can be, and I think there is, some need and some assumption that there's going to be certain services that are provided, not maybe directly through procurement, but indirectly as a result of the infrastructure and services that are provided by the communities. And I think about water and sewer for your worker accommodation. You mentioned the health and safety with the RCMP, and it's not sometimes the initial one proponent that you're dealing with. It's the magnitude of them all that I worry about that are coming towards us. And as you look at, there's potentially 3,000 person camps of occupancy proposed for the South Piece with TransCanada, Canada, Shell, Prince Rupert Gas, Coastal Gas. So and when you start to look at the magnitude of what will come to us, and I know each and every one of the proponents say, well, you know what, we're going to look at it from the perspective of we'll do on-site sewage, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. But do you know at the bottom line, it comes to where's the capacity exist if you can't do it, and it comes to the municipalities. Right. And that's what I worry about in terms of no matter what happens, no matter your best plans, you still are going to have some component about health. You have a significant issue on site that no matter how good your first aid, no matter how good your medical, it's stabilize and transport to the hospital. Issues around seriousness of security come from your on-site security, but eventually it's going to the RCMP. And all those things add to the complexities for us as communities. And that's the worry, right?
Yeah, and we hear that. The direction to the proponent, particularly related to worker accommodation and main civil works, and for main civil works, is to be self-contained, because that affects the cost for the project. So we will, from a water supply perspective, potentially there's surface water out of the Peace River, or there's wells. They have both options. And for treatment, mobile treatment plants, same with sewage to do that, because we know in what we read and hear and from council that capacity is strained right now. It's not there, particularly in the Fort St. John North Peace region with the regional district.
You know, I'll use an example, Dave. We had one of the large camps here, and the proponent, they obviously, like you guys through ATCO, will bring in their own suppliers, because the capacity to be able to provide food and services and all that to the camp of 1,200 people doesn't exist within the communities. But you know, you got some small businesses here that used to do that, and they provide that support. And so when you have a camp of that size, they're bringing everything in, then these local businesses, because they don't get a piece of it, they're laying people off at the same time as this huge economic development opportunities are going on in our communities. And so I say that, to me, at some point those entities come to us as a community and say, well, okay, it didn't work, we need your water, we need your sewer. And it was built by these local business people, right? By their taxes, being in business for 60 years. And yet they're laying people off while these huge projects are going on our doorstep.
Yeah, it's part of what we're trying to do in regards to connecting and doing the business-to-business sessions is connecting the main proponent with the business groups in the community, because there's advantages to having that supplied on a local level for that to occur, and we've been working to do that. Our experience of what we've seen in other locations, like Kitimat, for example, Fort McMurray, because we've gone around and looked at the examples, is that it can happen. We can't lock out people from other areas, Alberta, Saskatchewan, because of the New West Partnership Agreement. So you can't do that, otherwise you're breaking the law. But we're really striving to make sure that local regional businesses do get a piece of the pie, that they're not locked out of this. There's about $132 million in local GDP. The interest shows us it's there, and the background that we've heard from the proponents after the business-to-business sessions is it's valuable. They can tell within the first 5 minutes whether there's a connection there. And they thought the sessions were good and that there's businesses that they can access. And I suspect some will be successful. And that's what's shown up in other areas like Kitimat and Fort Mac.
The problem for me is that these huge businesses, these camp providers, are international that you guys are going to be using. And so they get their leverage by their buying power.
Yep.
So when they're buying direct from the wholesalers, so they're cutting out our local business people. That's just one example. And it's a tough nut because it's financial for the proponents in terms of what they're doing, but we can't see our local businesses laying people off and not getting access to the opportunities because of the magnitude of the size of the projects, right?
Right.
And not just you guys either.
No, and I hear that. I mean, there's some differences between us and other camps. We're 7 kilometers from downtown Fort St. John. Access is extremely good, so nobody's 100K out in the middle of nowhere. And there are advantages. I hear what you're saying in regards to the advantages of levering size and using past suppliers to drive down the cost. But there's also advantages in using local, regional businesses. And that's what we're striving to do, is to have that happen. We can't direct it, but we can do things to help make that occur. And that's what we're trying to do.
But the piece, I'm gonna emphasize this, is the piece is you, Hydro, the industry guys, are gonna lean on our infrastructure, our services, in order to build it when you need it. But those businesses that built that are local businesses that have been here for 50 or 60 or 70 years, and they're not getting a piece of it, right? Honestly, I don't know what the answer is, just to implore the industry, to implore the business community to understand that in order for this to make this work, we all have to work together with it. Right?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, Your Worship. Yeah.
Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, just three questions. Twin Rivers Lodging is out of Prince George?
No, Twin River Lodging is out of Alberta.
Out of Alberta?
Yeah, because they're a combination of Bird and ATCO.
Okay. What timelines BC Hydro working at now? I mean, you have quite a few legal matters to navigate. So what's your expected start date?
We're looking at starting this summer. That's the direction that we've been.
This summer?
This summer, yeah.
So all those lawsuits are going to be dealt with by then?
No, I suspect a number of the lawsuits will still be ongoing. We'll look at starting as early as July. We presently have 45 permits outstanding that we require, as well as a couple of authorizations, a fisheries authorization, which is federal, and a navigable waters authorization because we're putting a barrier in the river, we're closing the river. And you need those before you can do any in-stream works. We're looking at doing site preparation work on the North Bank, so that one you should hear about in the near future, and worker accommodation. Those are on hydro-owned lands. And there's the Ministry of Transportation road works for road upgrades in existing Ministry of Transportation right-of-ways. So I suspect that and I couldn't speculate on the outcome of the court cases, but I expect those will be ongoing through the early stages of construction.
So I'm a little shocked about that scenario. So one can just go ahead with a project like this, even though there's all sorts of law cases. Maybe I need to be educated a little bit about our law system here. I thought. Anyway, that's just. So the timelines. You're starting significant work in July.
We're starting site preparation work in as early as this July. Yes.
Okay. And what's the current budget figure that you're using for this project?
$8.35 billion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
My
Good to
pleasure,
see
Your
you.
Worship.
Appreciate you coming in and updating us, and look forward to our ongoing stuff with the committee.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Your Worship. And thank you very much for time on Council's agenda. Appreciate
Thank
it. Okay.
Ryan and Dean from Spectrum Venue Management. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Morning.
Is Dean with you?
Dean could not make it.
Oh,
He
okay.
got torn away, but I do have Shannon.
Good morning, Shannon.
Come join.
Good morning.
Morning. So,
Are you guys on?
no, it's okay. It's okay.
I've tried.
It's okay. So, as promised, I will make this short.
That's impossible.
Timer starts now.
Dave about 6
Start the
minutes to
timer
talk
now.
about 8.35 billion. So, I guess that gives you about 40 seconds.
So in the council package, you were given the actual annual report, the glossy side of it, and I have a couple of hard copies here if you'd like to have it in a hard form. I will refer to the document, but I really wanted to sort of touch base on the other document that I submitted, which was a bit more information specific to what was going on. So I'll just sort of review some of those highlights for you. So as part of the background, as we always do, the initial business plan was approved in 2009, and in 2012, a revised business plan was given back to you for 5 years, and then annually we provide you documents, the venue strategic priorities, which is given to our contract administrator, which is the CAO, Mr. Jim Shute, as well as we provide capital documents, the budget, and those go to Ms. Wolf, and then we provide the annual report to you, as well as we provide in August, September-ish, a Lakota management review and summary based off of their contract. And as always, as we've always done, we always just note to you that the contract between the City of Dawson Creek and Global Spectrum expires December 31st, 2017. So a little bit of historical comparison for you on the numbers. So in 2014, we had a total of 47 events for a total of 153 event days. That is an increase due to the multiple events that we had were multiple days. Our attendance and the difference between the budget and the actual operating subsidy, and the difference of that to the good of $29,000. We also have gone back and compared it from what we said in the business plan to the actual. So in 2014, you can see the numbers with respect to the business plan numbers to the actual, and some of the fluctuations, but generally speaking, we're right on track as it represents from the business plan to the actual numbers that happened in 2014. So one of the things that we like to do with you as well is to review the assumptions that we put forward. So we got to remember this is 2014, not 2015, and there are some obviously big changes that happened in 2015, beginning of the year. But so with the meeting space last year that we've proposed, no funding and further direction was to move forward. But however, last year in the capital, money was put forward to concrete and get rid of all the dirt, remainder of the dirt in the facility venue, and so that was completed. And so not only was the south side, but the north side was completed within the capital money that was identified. So that was a major and positive impact, but also provides further opportunity as you sort of get closer of finishing that space. There is still no dialogue with anyone with regarding to a main tenant, but we're still always open to that opportunity. No real significant changes with respect to the economy or political or administrative climate. So with that, obviously 2014 was 2014, but really January 2015, as we all know, the change with the prices of oil, etc. That all sort of happened the end of December and into January. So there is a big change as it relates to 2015 in terms of that global economy. And then with respect to foresee no significant change to the political administrative views for the venue, nothing's really changed in 2014, but in 2015, you've identified a couple of items on your 2015 strategic priorities, which we'll be working with you about. As well as in 2016, as part of the assumptions that we put forward that we would be seeking a national sporting event in 2016, which we were unsuccessful in getting, in the IHF Under 18 Women's Championship, as we all know. And then with respect to the event industry routing, artist, and show availability, that's sort of a bit of a moving target, but we've been very successful with that. And I refer you to the actual annual report of listing out of all the events. And the couple of events that I think that is notable to just bring to your attention was one was Blue Rodeo, not for the sense of the artists, but what happened on that evening. If you remember last January 2014, the city lost power for a number of hours, and it so happened to happen during the concert, and everything and the spin outs that came with that, something that was so negative in terms of the power coming on or losing the power, etc., but responding to the artist and the crowd and providing that unique opportunity and be able to play through that. And the venue and the band and the city receiving national, international news coverage through the industry was very well received. The other one that I want to highlight would be the 2 nights of Luke Bryan, May 6 and 7. That'd be the second year that we did a double header, both nights sold out. So that was a significant event in terms of the routing as well, and the artist availability. As we provide the historical comparison with the number of events, etc., it just shows you sort of the ebb and flow of the events. And in the previous years, the numbers would have been higher because of the main tenant. Also, we had the national, the curling events at the same time as we had the main tenant, so that's why the numbers would have spiked at that time. And then in terms of attendance, you can sort of see the historical representation there of all the attendance. And again, in those previous years, the difference in some of the numbers rates again relates to, it's all event driven. So you're talking about the main tenant at the time, the Rage, but also the national curling events that we're hosting at that time. Some of the information relates to the fan statistics. So we've heard from our fans that they want quality, not quantity, and that the other aspect is that our overall event attendance has been stable, and it's really been just because of the diversity of events that we've been bringing to the market. We've also been focusing more on community events within the community and making those events stronger. And the attendance and the ancillary revenues directly relate to the genre, the type of event. So country market has a specific, we can sort of really target in on what those revenues will be compared to, say, to a rock concert or to a family show. And I would also say that the impact of the building still stays true today from your original vision, which was to attract people to the community, to overnight stays and day trippers, and it continues to be a reality. And the economic impact and the spin-offs of restaurants, hotels, and quick serve restaurants have all been positive. The next graph represents sort of the ticket orders. It's not the number of tickets, but the number of orders, and we still see a decline in terms of the number of BC or British Columbia orders, and an increase in the Alberta orders. The one thing is that we did see an increase in the BC orders this year, and that was, or in 2014, and that was purely because of the events that did not happen, say, in the Prince George market. So we were attracting those residents this way, bringing those people this way. So we have we've actually seen that information come through. In terms of our strategic initiatives, as we've put forth to you, is that as part of the 5-year plan, which was to include the capital investment of the south side and the concrete, and we finished that and went to the north side and did that as well. We're still sort of in discussion with you with respect to the direction and funding to finish the space for the long term. It has provided, there are short-term opportunities ahead of itself that we're looking to do, whether it be the Rotary Conference, NCLJ, Oktoberfest, and pre and post events. We also use some of the additional space to create a lounge experience, which I believe several of you partook into, I think it was John Fogarty. So we've taken additional space and turned it into a revenue generating opportunity. Again, we're open to those main tenant opportunities. As we look to the trends out there and our competition, we always still maintain that watchful eye on our competitor, and we share that information with our contract administrator. And last year, the City of Grand Prairie spent $3 million on upgrading their rigging steel and such to come to an equal sort of to us in terms of the ability to rig the production requirements for some of the shows. It's also, from what we can see and tell, is that they're ramping up. They're really starting to look at their business and become more aggressive. We've been very, so far, successful in maintaining and growing our relationships, and that, I think, shows from the quality of shows that we've been booking. We're increasing our technology and some of the traditional marketing spends and using more technology to provide better return on investment and more eyes on the advertising. We're reinvesting dollars on our venue infrastructure, so more points of sale so we can sell more food and beverage items throughout the venue. And we've also, last year, I don't want to say we were the only reason why it happened, which is not true, but we're successful collectively of working and lobbying the BC government make changes to the liquor policy with respect to the stadiums. And so I know that Global Spectrum submitted some stuff, and I know that the city, I know that your worship, you sent some information on as well. So it's great to see now that we can sell spirits within the venue as well. It's important as a recap of the 2014 business that in 2014, the Canada Event Centre was ranked number 3 in Canada for a venue of its size between 2,000 and 5,000 capacity. Again, I talked about Blue Rodeo and Luke Bryan. Also, again, with the changes of the liquor policy changes in terms of the spirits that we're now able to serve, but also the suspensions that we had to do to serve the spirits and whatever, and that sort of now evaporated due to the fact of the change in the policies. We still continue to try to alleviate the scalping that happens of the tickets, and we've coming more sophisticated and more wise and wary to what is happening out there for the ticket scalping, and so so we're really trying to minimize that to ensure that the true fan can get the ticket at the right price. We really focused on last year on the fan experience. So we worked with the city with their Shaga Wi-Fi to include the entire complex, but also we worked with TELUS to put a cell tower specifically in the venue, as well as we increased the live social media, blogging, etc., as well as the fan photo booth. So at the past events last year, we had a photo booth where people could go and dress up and take their picture and tweet it and talk about it, etc., which was very positive. We created it's really a gift card, but we call it the Plus Pass of, again, being able to sell gift cards because not everyone may be interested in a specific event at a time, but for Christmas and Father's Day, Mother's Day, etc., to provide that gift card opportunity to provide that additional revenue streams for us. And then finally, the fan experience was the lounge and providing that additional opportunity to provide something different. One of the other priorities last year was the priority and allocation of resources for in-house events, decreasing those dark days. So specifically reaching out with the Kiwanis Community Band and partnering them with the Oktoberfest. We did the Touch a Truck event, and we did a myriad of others. But also in 2015 was the actual event, but it took several months to arrange and coordinate the Health and Wellness Expo, which was very successful. But also we further implemented the 2013 Energy Management Plan for the South Peace Community Multiplex. We did the 2014 strategic priorities and continued on the business plan as presented to Council. And all those documents have been provided to Mr. Shute. I think that one of the important things that I wanted to highlight is that last year, at the end of the year, we did every year we do a survey after every event, and that tells us event data. But we also did an annual survey, and it was really telling to us that generally, of the 1,504 respondents, that we are doing a very good job in terms of what people think and like about the venue. So the overall experience out of 5 was 4.26, the quality of events 4.17, cleanliness of the venue. So I think we're definitely on the right track in terms of what we're doing and how we've been doing it. I think we have some room to grow and make some changes, but generally we're definitely on the right track. Finally, I would be, I think it's super important to talk about the benefit to our commitment to going green, but also that partnership between Peter and the City of Dawson Creek with respect to those energy initiatives. So we have seen a dramatic or a decrease in the energy usage year over year on electricity. Even though the rates continue to rise, we've still been able to decrease the actual usage and the cost. But and then on the gas as well, although the usage was up a little bit, we also had more cooler days in 2014 than we had in previous years, but all the numbers are going the right way. So I would say that the energy programs that are being put in place and the opportunities with BC Hydro, et cetera, have been paying back, and we look to continue to make those improvements within the venue. I think the final thing that I'd like to talk about is we sent the press release out, and I know that they were sent out to Mayor and Council, but I'd like just to talk about that. Sometimes it's really difficult to really talk about, what do we give back to the community. And last year, as we do every other year, as we track it and we send out the press release, but last year we gave over $50,000 in terms of tickets, autographed guitars, signed items, discounted rental space within the venue. So I think it's a really good news story when we can provide a couple of autographed guitars, I know, to the South Peace Oilmans for their Lobster Fest, and I know that they have been historically a good revenue generator for that event, but also to smaller community events as well, whether it be tickets or, again, autographed items. So I think that we are definitely going the right way. We also wanted to highlight and make mention, and in the document is talking about what makes Dawson Creek unique compared to some of the other venues, and one of those opportunities is what we get to give the gift to the artist. And so we wanted to dedicate that 2 pages to the crochet dolls, and I can tell you that as much as it seems kind of funny and silly, the artists absolutely love their little mini-me dolls that are made of them, and they've made national and international attention on TV and through their. We actually have parents of the artists emailing us and or the local artist to make sure that their son or daughter gets a doll made of them. So, anyways, I think that 2014 was a great year. 2015's been very well, and we continue to make improvements, and we continue to strive just to keep moving it forward. Yeah. Anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions?
Good job.
Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, if you turn to page 11, maybe this, actually, Mayor, I'm just thinking that it's been discussed, I think, either at council or between some council members, that many of us really do not understand the contract between the city and Global Spectrum, but also we maybe just don't understand the mechanics of some of these shows. I know every show is different, and I really appreciate your work very much and your enthusiasm for it. I'm just wondering if some future meeting in camera, because this is all just so we understand how the sort of, just choose a couple of events and how it worked, and I would appreciate trying to, I do not understand the contract.
Sure.
And I keep getting asked all sorts of questions by all sorts of people, and they expect me to know, okay? It's not because they have anything against you, they won't go to you, they expect me as their elected council to know. At least, and I say I don't understand. So this is, I would suggest that choose a couple of events and we can work through it. But just quickly, I don't, this page 11, just help me. Direct event income, what sort of things would be covered under that heading, Ryan?
Shannon?
Okay, so direct event income is the ticket money minus our expenses to the promoter or our co-promoter and the artist.
Okay, thank you. And ancillary income, what would be included under there
Right.
traditionally?
Right, so we add back in things like concessions
Yeah.
and catering revenue and merchandise sales.
Okay. And what might be included under other event income?
So that's, so sort of, if you can see the gross ticket revenue, that's just a really great number to highlight how we did over the year in sales. And then we subtract payments to the artists, sorry, I missed one, and all of our show costs as well. So payments to the artist, payments to promoters, and all of our show costs like stagehands and labor.
Sorry, which heading are you referring to at the moment?
So all of those things are missing. So all you get
yeah.
is our net effect.
Yeah.
So under the other event income, that was the one I was asking.
Right. So I'm just trying to. So then, so that you've got direct event income as a negative, and add back in ancillary income.
Yeah, I
for a
understand those
total
two.
of-
Oh, and then
For a
that's the
total.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And total other income, what might be included under that?
That would be
So those are things like corporate sales, money from
Yeah.
advertising.
Thanks very much. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a good point, and we'll, I'll take that, and we'll bring it back through Jim, and bring that back into a meeting. Councillor Rogers.
I just had a question. I'm looking at the budget operating subsidy. Because you hear a lot about it, why is the city subsidizing them so much and everything else? And I know that you would do it if you could, Ryan, but what things are there that we could possibly be looking at doing to minimize that subsidy that the city's paying? Is there
to decrease the
to
subsidy.
look at decreasing that subsidy?
I think that there's a couple of things. I know that one would be looking to add more suites for the events, as there's a demand for the those suites. I think the other thing is it's some of it is adding more points of sale, more opportunity to sell the merchandise, etc. We I think that we do a good job on the corporate sales and some of the partnerships. So I think that there's some room to negotiate as we look from the contracts that we did 4 years ago or 7 years ago or 6 years ago to where we are now. And I also believe the other opportunity is more events. It really comes down to booking more events and more quality events, more also the other opportunity would be is just it's the more people through the building, more bums and seats, more food and beverage. It's the whole net effect that drives the whole bottom line. So it's some the other side would be is more opportunity I believe could exist with some of that future space as well.
Thanks, Ryan. And so that's a great point for us as we have that session with council and administration to have that conversation about some of those other components that we need to understand with that facility. So thank you. Ryan, thanks very much. Shannon, thanks. Good to have you guys in and appreciate the update. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, please. 7-minute recess.
7 minutes in front.
Through our delegations, and our first item under 7, reports. Report number 15099 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding our 2014 annual report. Councillor Wilbur.
I'll make motion that report number 15-099 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the Dawson Creek Annual Report for 2014 be received. Further, that the annual report be approved as presented.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 7.2, report number 15100 from the CFO regarding our Statement of Financial Information report, the Sophie report. Councillor Rogers. Move. Seconded. Councillor Schumann.
You want me to
Discussion?
read it?
What's that?
You want me to read it?
Sure.
That report number 15-100 from the Deputy Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2014 statement of financial information be received. Further, that council approve the City of Dawson Creek 2014 statement of financial information.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Just a question, if I,
Yep.
nothing to do with the motion, but with this
Yep.
this topic. The requirement to report salaries in excess of, is it 70 or 75,000?
75,000.
75. Hasn't that been in place for quite a few years? That level? I'm wondering.
No, it used to be,
I thought it was.
pardon me?
I thought it was. It has been 75 for a few years now.
It started at 50 and it went to 75. I can't remember how long ago that was.
Well, it just seems to me, with the way the salaries are going up in all industries, whether who reviews it? I mean, now 75 is a little passé in some industries and some work. I mean, I thought it was just to capture the top incomes. Usually now it's catching a significant portion of the workforce. Is that a federal or is that provincial?
It's provincial legislation.
I wonder if we should suggest it be updated to maybe 100,000. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It used to be just a little the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess it's just being more accountable and transparent, right? You get to see more people's.
Well, then why not have everyone's? Anyway, just wondering if we should send a letter to suggest it be updated to.
Maybe we'll just do a little look and see what the history when it was 75. And Jim?
So of course it's referred to as a sunshine list. So the unintended consequence of suggesting that less people be on the list is that you'll be tagged as not enjoying the sunshine.
Well, then let's have
I think you might want to give that a pass.
What about having the full exposure then? No pun intended.
Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have report number 15109 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the Grandview School property. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 15-109 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding the Grandview School property be received. Further, that the property be added to the city's land sale list as is and shown as reserved to allow the proposed use to be considered by council. And further, that the hazmat removal and demolition be referred to the 2016 budget discussions in the event that the property is not sold in 2015.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Councillor Rogers, then Councillor Parslow.
Okay, I looked at recommendation number 1 and/or recommendation number 2. It says for the report 15-109, it says to be referred to the 2016 budget discussions. Now, could we add a friendly amendment to that? That it would be also discussed in our strategic planning session? I look at that land and I go that it's a prime piece of property, and the city's inventory for property in that neighborhood, I think it's a significant piece of land, and I do think that there, council has different ideas which they would like to see happen with that land, and I'm thinking if it doesn't get sold, or maybe somebody likes option 1 or 2, I could go either way. But I just look at that land. I think that there's something that we could probably as a council, as a city, decide maybe we want that land for something that we want to do with it. So I'm just looking at going, if it doesn't sell in 2015, maybe we should look at what we want to do with it in our strategic planning session.
Yeah. Yep. Councillor Parslow.
Well, I had some similar thoughts, I guess. Given the work that is going to happen with maybe the health committee, small town love, whatever, transition housing, maybe we need to just clarify some of our aspirations for this prime piece of land. That before we just on a sort of a, maybe I if I'm not, I apologize if I say something here that doesn't apply in this recommendation, but operating in this bit of an ad hoc way. You know, it's on the reserve list and as is, and I think I'd rather us have a little bit, if we can, in the next few months, some fuller discussion about what our aspirations are.
And I think by putting it on reserved, does that not bring it back to us for those considerations and discussions? Jim?
Through your worship, it would, but hearing Councillor Parslow and Councillor Rogers, would you be ready to
Consider it.
consider a proposal? If you haven't determined for yourselves what your aspirations are, maybe the best is not to put it on the land sale list at all. Clearly the land, the barrier to the land is the building that's on it, so you're gonna have to look at the cost of demolishing that. But maybe in the meantime, it would be poor service to potential purchasers if you're actually not ready to consider a proposal.
Yeah, you know, we talked earlier about earlier in the meeting where we were wanting to meet with potentially the Minister of Housing, Deputy Premier Coleman, as it relates to BC Housing, and engage potentially in that conversation in terms of, same as you mentioned, the Health Committee and Housing, and is there a partnership for BC Housing with, and you need land to do that. So and I'm just using that as one example, but yeah, I think there's lots of, you know, years and years ago it was land bank was the issue, and today we don't have that land, and so how we plan for some of those components around the community, I think we should engage in that. Councillor Roger?
Yeah. Well, through the RFP process that it had originally, that we had sent out, that we didn't unfortunately get a response to, we were entertaining ideas at that time. I just wonder what the desire is now.
Yeah. Okay, what's your we have a motion. We're going to put it on the reserved and the land sales and as is. You want to deal with that motion? Or do we need...
Well,
I don't know.
Right now, it seems to me that following the sort of summary staff just provided, I will have to vote against this, because I'd like us to really try to get some clarity about what are the possibilities in cooperation with other agencies, BC Housing. Do we form a Dawson Creek Housing? Not we, but if there was a Dawson Creek Housing Society, and if we wanted to play some role with that, I mean, I'd rather wait and not act on anything to do with this right now. I mean, what's the alternative here?
If we place it on the reserved, we're going to consider something coming back, and if we're not ready to do that, I think that's your point.
Yeah, the alternative would be to remove it from the land sale list entirely, still look at budget proposals for demolition, but add it as a strategic planning item for next year.
So, Councillor Wilbur?
Just hearing what Jim has had to say, I think in doing that, and rather than this particular recommendation, it's going to give us the opportunity to find out what are the actual needs within our community. So we have several agencies that have clients that vary in degree and level of what they need. But I mean, I do see some sort of housing going in there. It would fit within the neighborhood. There's transportation accessibility, but what exactly is it that we need? And I think we need to have some time to have that discussion with the minister, but also with our local agencies, and maybe time to review this video as well that Councillor Parcells brought back.
There's other videos that relate to affordable housing.
So is that, if I'm sensing the will of council is there's no sense to vote on a motion just simply to defeat it. Can we just withdraw it then? Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
All right. Is the council okay with that if we withdraw and put it? Because I'm sensing that there's a different
I think we
feeling
need to
of
know
council.
what we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll simply withdraw the motion and
The only risk, Your Worship, the only risk that would be associated with this is the building that is sitting there, and the building, like, I wish that building wasn't even there, because then it would be so much easier to deal with this. But the risk is there vandalism gets done to the building gets burnt down, and you know, there are other buildings that are here. I just thought that maybe I just mentioned that there is a risk with this leaving the building sitting there as well.
But we're gonna do that anyway, because we
It's
don't
gonna
have to go
sit
to
there
do it
anyway,
right?
so, yeah.
Okay, so so I'm sensing, one, just pull it off the land sale and put it into our strategic planning discussion. And as we have further discussions this fall, potentially that might escalate it as well in terms of options, or there may be other things that come to light this fall that may escalate it up as well. But
So then, do we then need to put a motion forward for the hazmat removal and demolition for the 2016 budget?
I
that's
believe you
part of
would
that
still want
motion.
to do that, because as Councillor Rogers says, what's preventing that land being valuable is what's sitting on it.
Sure.
And we
Okay.
run the hazard of it, exactly, fire, vandalism.
So you're making that motion?
I'm making that motion.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Everybody okay, clear on what we're proposing?
Yeah.
All ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.4, we have report number 15104 from the Director of Corporate Administration regarding our land sale policy. Councillor Parslow?
I move that report number 15-104 from the Director of Corporate Administration re land sale policy revision be received. Further, that the administration fee included with the land sale policy be increased from $300 to $600 plus 10% administration fee.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rogers. Discussion.
I believe,
Councillor
speak
Parslow?
to the, I believe this recommendation just reflects previous discussion when questions were raised by maybe, I think it was Councillor Rogers, about costs.
Yep.
That we needed to update it.
Yep. That's right. Any further discussion on the motion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.5, we have report number 15108 from the Senior Planner regarding tow truck parking in residential zones. We have received some information from Jim in regards to updating some of the components that we'd asked after following the delegation. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll move the report number 15-108 from the Senior Planner, tow truck parking in residential zones be received. Further, that staff be directed to proceed with drafting of necessary bylaw amendments to permit parking of tow trucks in residential zones.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Wilbur, discussion? Councillor Rogers?
I wasn't in favor of it then, I'm not in favor of it now. I've read a lot of stuff. If there's a motor vehicle accident out of town, does our fire department not attend it as well if it's a serious accident? I'd like to ask that to administration.
Through your worship, we are generally dispatched to motor vehicle accidents within our catchment area. Our fire department is.
Okay. I read all of the other considerations regarding it. I know that we don't usually care what happens in other communities, but it looks to me like this would be rare for any community to have a tow truck being able to operate in a residential area. Also, you do, I talked to a few citizens about this, and the thing they were talking to me about was the trailers and the motorhomes and everything being this time of year that are parked on the roads, etc. And I've seen how many times that this has come up in the past few years, and some of the councillors were actually are here today that had voted on this before, and I won't ask them, but I was curious to find out over the years, you know, what would possibly change your mind regarding this new item that's come forward again that they've turned down in previous years, and I just was wondering about that.
Good question.
So I just looking at as far as the tow trucks go in a residential neighborhood, I don't think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Councillors, any further? Councillor Parslow, did you want to speak?
Yes, I do. I just really,
Formulate.
I just enjoying Mark's question there. That's great. This may be out of order, but I must say it's great having Nigel on board. I really enjoy reading his reports, Nigel. So good for you. And he listed here council considerations prior to moving forward. I read that, and I think I voted in favour of after the presentation before, but I'm really worried about this being, as it's described, the thin edge of the wedge here. I know that when I drive through residential areas here, boy, it's tough. And then that picture, tough getting through. And that picture of that tow truck parked in front of the residences just over here, I don't know if that's the direction I want this community to go. So I'm going to vote against this recommendation, because I don't think I'll be supporting the bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Councillor Wilbur, then Councillor Javetkov.
I do remember in discussions with the delegation that came that they said they did have the ability to not park that particular truck, that picture on the road, that they did have a parking space out back they could utilize. So that's maybe something that we need to make them adhere to. But I also think times are changing and we have to look at communities. I know when traveling to Alberta, I noticed the little communities along the way had signs posted that during certain hours, during certain months of the year, you couldn't park on that street because they were plowing the snow. So many communities are moving to one side of the street parking. They're moving to many communities, urban communities have permitted parking, so you have to buy a permit. And I think parking's an issue, and it's something that we are dealing with, and we'll get through all of that information. So I will support it. I think we have to be realistic about what's happening in our community, and we have to be proactive and start thinking into the future and what that's going to look like. So I will support it. I think it's a proactive move, and hopefully the rest of our parking, as that rolls out and we look at it, we will be able to do the same.
Thank you. Councillor Javetkov.
I've heard some of the concerns as well about RVs, trailers, motorhomes parked on streets. And I've seen them plugged in and leveled and people living in them parked on the street. Those things, I mean, they're there today. I could take you out and show you them today. I guess nobody complains, so they're not dealt with. This here report, if you read the table, those restrictions mitigate all of the concerns that I would have and that I've heard from the public. The vehicles will be parked off street. There's all kinds of restrictions in here about noise and that type of thing, so I'm totally in favor of it. I think it's something that is needed by the RCMP, it's needed by the service providers, and I think it's time for us to move ahead with it.
Thank you. Further discussion? You know, sorry, I was just going to say that I read through the report. Like Councillor Javetkov, I read the restrictions. I like the aspect of permitting. And, you know, part of what we do in setting bylaw and setting policy is attempting to ensure that we move our community forward in a way that works for our community. And so you weigh all of those different aspects of what works and what may not work. And it's about always, from my view, trying to keep pushing that bar higher. And in certain respects, you make what you hope is an informed decision on how you think that will move us forward. And we always have the ability to review and monitor those decisions. And I like the aspect of being able to put some restrictions on the permitting component, see if we can make this work for our community, and reevaluate it. If we start to get a ton of feedback, we would. So I like the idea of the permitting and identified those restrictions as identified by Councillor Javetkov. Councillor Schumann, you had a comment?
No.
Any further discussions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. We have a report number 15105 from the Senior Planner regarding the development variance permit 1501 for Daryl Brumman, 9133 Calverley Crescent. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll move that we approve the variance request, and I'll speak to it if we get a seconder.
Thank you. Seconder? For a first time? Do I have a seconder for a second time? For a third time, do I have a seconder? Okay. In motion, Councillor Parslow?
I move that report number 15-105 from the Senior City Planner, redevelopment variance permit number 15-01, located at 9133 Calverley Crescent, be received. Further, that development variance permit number 15-01, which would allow a variance to the maximum height of accessory structures from 5 meters to 6.9 meters, be refused on the basis that it would negatively alter the neighborhood character.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion. Councillor Javetkov?
The problem I've got with it is that I don't think it's the height of the building that affects the quality of the neighborhood. I think it's the building itself. Located in that location, you know, when you take those trees out and you put a building there of this style, I think that's the issue. I don't think height has anything to do with it. So, you know, if the building is reduced in height by 6 feet or 5.5 feet, I don't think it'll make any difference. So I'll vote against the motion.
Thank you. I read it that it was, the other component was around the issue of coach house and the suite aspect as one component if you allowed it. That, and I read that in the report. So that, Councillor Roger?
I read that in the report too, and it was regarding the zoning, and it was regarding
Location.
carriage houses and everything else, and we had already dealt with all of that stuff. Council had dealt with that stuff for over a year, and I wasn't prepared to start going against what we had decided.
Thank you. Further comments? Further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 7.7, we have a report number 15106 from the Senior City Planner regarding development permit 1512, Campton Construction, 2800 92nd Avenue. Councillor Parslow?
I move that report 15-106 from the Senior City Planner, redevelopment permit 15-12 be received. Further, that the development permit 15-12 for the proposed shop located on 2800 92nd Avenue be authorized in principle and issued upon successful completion of the required 10-day notification period and receipt of financial security in the amount of 125% of the value of site landscaping, including hard surfacing.
Seconded, Councillor Rogers. Discussion? Questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 7.8, we have report number 15107 from the Senior City Planner regarding development permit 1511 for the Dawson Creek Society for Community Living, 1334 102nd Avenue.
Your Worship, Councillor Parslow and I are at council.
Oh, all right. We still got 4. We still got 4.
You got that, Cheryl?
No, it's
Still, I'm
taken
still
its
unloading
time.
here. Yeah.
I would move the recommendation anyways. Even
Move
though I don't
recommend-
have it in front of me.
Move
I would.
recommendation.
I'm still turning here.
Yeah, ours is still.
It's not coming up.
Oh, I got something.
Mine's loaded.
Do you want me to read it?
Sure, if you don't mind.
Report number 15-107 from the Senior City Planner. Development permit 15-11 be received. Further, that staff be directed to issue development permit 15-11 permitting the development of an accessory shop structure to be located at 1334 102nd Avenue and varying the maximum height of accessory building and structures from not exceeding the height of the principal building to 5.3 meters, and further that issuance of the permit is subject to receipt of the required financial security of $26,736.
Thank you. That's seconded. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah.
Discussion? Comments? Questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Did it pass? No.
Yes. Of course it did. Yes, of course it did.
Report
All right.
item 7.9, we have report 15-102 from the Director of Infrastructure regarding our 2015 SCADA upgrades. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 15-102 from the Director of Infrastructure regarding the 2015 SCADA upgrades be received. Further, that council authorize staff to sole source SCADA upgrades through Interior Instrument Technical Services Limited in alignment with the 2015 capital budget.
Secretary, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Questions? Comments? Councillor Parslow?
Oh, no, sorry, I was just,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
just jumping ahead of you. I was voting for it, sorry.
I'm slowing down a little for you guys, a little. You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank
I'm
you.
a sucker for the slow pitch, right?
Curveball. Item 8, bylaws. We have report number 15-103 from the Director of Development Services regarding our automated curbside waste collection update. Councillor Parslow.
We move the report number 15-103 from the Director of Development Services, re-automated curbside waste collection update be received. Further, the city provide only one standard 180-litre cart to every curbside pickup account holder, with the option to the account holder to purchase at their own cost no more than one additional standard 180-litre cart. And further, that waste collection disposal regulation amendment bylaw number 4265 2015 be given the first 3 readings.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Rogers. Discussion? Questions? Councillor Rogers?
Just one thing, I'm in favor of it, I'm happy with that. I did read in the report that it gets assembled, so I was wondering, I got a few questions. Who assembles these carts when they show up? And who does repairs and maintenance on these carts when they break? And if a cart is stolen from a property or damaged by the homeowners, what's the procedure with that?
Good questions.
Okay.
I'll
Jim?
just kick that over to Kevin.
Kevin?
Through your worship, so first question, it's assembled by the supplier, Toter. So the carts will be delivered to the city near the end of this month, and we'll just have them on site when the team comes in to do the delivery of them, because they do all the deliveries. They'll construct and deliver to the homeowner, so that'll be later in summer. Repairs. So I guess it will depend on exactly what it is. There won't be much to repair. Basically, you've got a set of wheels that live. So if the wheels goes, we'll have a couple of parts in our stores. We're not anticipating a whole lot there, but I would assume that that's going to be us that would facilitate that repair. And the third question was, is if it was damaged, stolen, or lost. Ultimately, that's going to be the homeowner's responsibility because we have no ability to track that. Well, I shouldn't say we have the ability to track it because each unit will have a serial number registered to that homeowner, but if it disappears, likely whether we'll ever find it again, that'll be
Through your worship, are we going to be letting the homeowners know that it's their responsibility for that cart?
Yes. So as part of the whole transition is we're developing materials that will be going to the homeowners prior, and when the carts are delivered, there'll be more material that will go along with the cart that will talk about these very issues about whose responsibility it is, who to call, those types of things.
Okay. Councillor Javetkov.
So the idea of purchasing a second cart, does that mean like our rates will allow the pickup of 2 carts from a household?
Through your worship, it'll double the pickup amount.
Yeah. Goes from 12 to 24 then. Further questions? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report number 8.2, we have report number 15-110 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration regarding our loan authorization funds transfer bylaw. Councillor Wilbur?
I make the motion on report number 15-110 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration regarding the unused debt borrowing be received. Further, that the unused borrowing transfer bylaw number 4266 2015 be given first 3 readings.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 9, Mayor's Business. So there's been a number of updates by Councillor Schumann, Wilbur, and Parslow at FCM. I also attended FCM and from Thursday through to Monday morning and drove home. Friday, attended a number of really good sessions. Councillor Parslow mentioned the one in regards to the asset management. I also attended the one on Saturday morning in regards to first responders, and it was a really interesting conversation that took place by first responders, fire, ambulance, police across Canada in terms of how different municipalities are dealing with the issue of one. There was a lot of communication, a lot of talk around the communication issues that first responders face, and there's lots of communities that are in lots of areas that are facing this issue of first responders not being able to communicate with each other because of radio and I think bandwidth and different things like that. So they're looking at standardizing that, which will increase and enhance the communication abilities with first responders. You know, there was some really good conversation there about, there was a guy that was the Assistant Deputy Minister out of Saskatchewan who was background in police and law enforcement, and talked about some of the components that communities face when you're dealing with some communities, some major crime, and the efforts that are put in by the RCMP and the municipal police services with just time-consuming court document preparation and attendance, where I think in the number was like 40 or 50% of some of the work that the RCMP deal with or municipal police deal with end up in less than 4 days of actual incarceration time, as you would relate it to serious crime. And so it was an amazing statistic to me when you think about some of the serious crime, and our community is no different than that when you look at that as an issue, and the amount of resources that are tied up on what are considered to be minor type offenses that are consumed by the RCMP. It was a very interesting discussion and conversation. Saturday I attended, I was invited by Sean Finn, the Executive Vice President of CN, to a luncheon, and I not only took the opportunity when I first got to see the FCM, because CN hosted a reception area as you were going into the main hall. So I locked into CN right then to get to the Vice President of Calgary and the Director of Facilities and Land. And she actually was very familiar with us because she was the one that ultimately helped us with our easement with CN Land. And so they're very engaged and understanding of our community, and met with the Executive Vice President of CN, and I was actually hunting them down because I wanted to make sure that we get them to the follow-up for the roundtable that I'm planning in August. And so that was a specific purpose. I had a great opportunity to engage with CN, both there as well as the Executive VP. You know, we got to hear the three of the four major political leaders nationally, Justin Trudeau, Thomas Mulcair, and Elizabeth May, and it's so interesting to me to be able to hear the focus and the theme of the conference. To me, was infrastructure funding and how the federal government need to be, and the provincial government as well, but the federal government primarily, and how the FCM are really focusing on that as an issue to ensure that we all get that adequate support from the federal government as it relates to infrastructure funding. So all in all, to me, there was we had the director elections for our regional elections for BC, Alberta, all across the province. We were there in support of those FCM director elections. I think now, and I was sitting there as I was thinking about it, that there's a need, hopefully in the future, I want to try and get more involved in that regional support to the FCM and demonstrate that we're going to be a little more proactive, I think, in terms of understanding how those impacts and decisions are made on federal infrastructure and those types of things. So I'm going to follow that in the coming year. But it was 3 days of really good interaction, some very interesting sessions, and really informative from that perspective. Councillor Schumann?
So we'll be nominating you next year for the BC caucus, perhaps?
Well, maybe, yeah. I'm going to follow it along a lot closer now, because that was the first FCM I was at. I didn't go to the one in Niagara Falls last year just because of where it was, and it was such a, and I had planned I was presenting at an LNG conference in Vancouver last year at exactly the same time, and I just couldn't see myself getting away for it. But it's worthwhile, and you know, the 1,900, I think, municipalities across across Canada are represented by the FCM. There was over 1,760 delegates in attendance. It was so you know, you really engage in a broad perspective with people from all across the country and different components. I want to talk about, I've been working away on developing stage 2 of the Mayor's Roundtable in August. Have had tremendous response to that initial outreach of Save the Date from a whole bunch of people that were in attendance to the roundtable last year. Focus I want to put on it this year is really on transportation from a couple of perspectives, because I think the amount of work that's going on in our community and region that we're going to be impacted by around rail and road and highway infrastructure and airport and air service, that I really want to zoom in on that from our last roundtable we did last fall. I've had tremendous response from President of Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers that indicated a desire to be here, CN. I've reached out to the Vice President of YVR, guy that I talked to, and he's going to asked us to send the information, and he's going to have one of the senior VPs from YVR hopefully to be in attendance. We've reached out to some other components, and I'm going to tighten it up this year. It'll be about a 3 or 4 hour event. I'm planning it on August 6th around the rodeo, and it won't be as there won't be the other costs associated with it, but I really like the idea of us trying to zoom in on that infrastructure, transportation topic. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, we just had that $1 billion rain over the weekend, so I think all the farmers are really happy. Have we talked to anybody from the agricultural industry to attend that?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm going to reach out to Sean Grant from the Southeast Grain Cleaning Co-op, because I really want to have them involved. Now that I've got this expression from CN, that I think they're going to have somebody, a representative there, because I know that Sean, through the Southeast Grain Cleaning Co-op, have been really proactively trying to get to CN with Bob Zimmer, our federal MP, to deal with that increased capacity that he for CN rail transportation. So I'm absolutely planning to do that. Councillor Schumann?
And our local MLA will be attending also.
Mike's been invited, and I've also talked to Bob Zimmer as well. So, yeah. It's in the rodeo fair time, so there's been a lot of interest. I ran into Dick Brown, president of Ferris, in Vancouver a couple weeks ago, and he was all over it. And to TransCanada people, I've talked to them again because they had 2 of their VPs at the last event, and Kyle Giddens, their director out of Prince George, said, you know, that thing that you guys did was, we've talked about that at our management meetings more than a lot of stuff. We got as much out of it as I think as you did. So I just think it's an opportunity for us to continue to engage with our local business folks and industry, with some senior folks, and at a high level with our transportation carriers. I was down in Vancouver 2 weeks ago, and I got asked to do a series of some presentations, and it follows, I think, a lot from the investor tours that have been going on. Councillor Wilbur's been involved in it. So I met with a group of significant Chinese investors, Asian investors in Vancouver, and I spent about 2.5, 3 hours downtown hotel. There was about 30 or 40 of them in attendance, and they're all keen about trying to leverage opportunities that exist in Northeast BC. You know, there was one guy, he's a young guy, like 30 years old. His dad's in China selling their assets, trying to get rid of the factories and their real estate holdings to relocate to Canada. And he said, you know, we've got this company we're building. We have a factory. We're producing Chinese, I think it's a vodka or a liquor of some kind. And he said, we bought a bunch of barley from you guys in the Peace River region. That's such high quality. And he said, one of the ideas he's thinking about is, he said, you know, and transportation was such a big issue for them. He said, we're thinking about maybe building a factory in the Peace River country to be able to produce the product right there. And I said, great idea, right? Great idea. So to me, there's just all those kinds of things that kind of pop up out of the blue. That so it was really well attended and worthwhile. Obviously, a week and a half ago, we got our Peace River Memorandum of Understanding completed and signed. Premier was in town, and it's now in place. This agreement, I think, honestly, I said it, it's the largest, I think, and most important bit of work any council, any level of municipal government will do in the Peace River region. certainly for our council, I don't think it was any exception. To have an agreement in place now that gives us the revenue through the Peace River Regional Agreement, the MOU now of upwards of $15 million a year for the next 20 or 25 years, $300 to $450 million to be able to do the planning for our community as it impacts infrastructure and planning for capital works and needs, where instead of worrying about what was going to happen to that MOU in the next coming 3 or 4 years, we now have that in place, signed and agreed to. And I just think it's just, as I say, the most significant bit of work that we will have done, and I'm just over the moon that we've got it completed and in place and behind us, that we know we can look forward in the planning for our community with that revenue stream from the province. Councillor Schumann mentioned we got invited by the Mayor of Council of Grant Prairie a couple weeks ago to attend the Municipal Government Day. They have it in Alberta, and they invited all the Northwest Alberta municipal governments, Beaver Lodge, Hythe counties, Grant Prairie, Sexsmith, Spirit River, and then all the Northeast communities. There was a councillor from Taylor in attendance, as well as Councillor Schumann and I, and I thought it was just a really good opportunity to engage with and meet some of our counterparts, and we've had some meetings with Saddle Hills folks and got some more coming, and I just think it's a real positive opportunity to engage in that. And you know, I had talked with Mayor Givens at the event, and he wants to try and see if we can arrange a meeting jointly with Grant Prairie and Mayor Ackerman and myself to talk about policing, because they have similar issues as it relates to, you know, serious crime and things like that, and what can we be working on together to try to identify ways to work more cooperatively regionally. And just because of the border of area division, E division, and I think they're K division or something, but to be working cooperatively with some ideas and how we can be trying to be proactive. And I just think, honestly, that that's an opportunity that, just because the border's there, that we shouldn't be trying to explore those options and those opportunities where we can work more cooperatively together. After the last election, we had formed the Health Committee, and honestly, for me, we've been so many other things kind of going on, and I know for Councillor Wilbur as well, but I really see this as a way for us to start from a grassroots level, building the health services for our community in partnership with Mike, our MLA Bernier, but also with those service providers in the community. And so about 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I set up a meeting with the South Peace mayors. Mayor Nicholas, Mayor Plowright in Pooskoopi, and Mayor McPherson in Tumbler Ridge, along with the electoral area directors, Leonard Hebert and Dan Rose, and just starting talking about things that affect us all jointly in the South Peace. And rather than at the Peace River Regional District, where we get together representing the regional district, but the South Peace region. And health is a good example of that, where the acute care facility in Dawson Creek provides acute care for those residents in the South Peace once they move past that service that they can get either in Chetwynd or in Tumbler Ridge. And so we've had 3 different meetings, the mayors over the last 3 months. We met again last week, and the focus right now for us has been on health and the South Peace Health recruitment issues as it relates to physician recruitment. You watch with pain that the difficulties that the city of Fort St. John and the North Peace are going through with physician recruitment, and they get 4 new ones in and a couple leave, and it's just a real tough situation when you're in that cycle of trying to provide support to your community. And so the mayors, we see the benefits of us working collaboratively and cooperatively and cohesively as it relates to physician recruitment. And we're looking at the idea of forming a South Peace society, of looking at, because we will do things parochially for our own communities, but we also need to be working together collaboratively as it relates to some of those things as well. And they've all been, and the electoral area directors see the benefits of that as well. And so we're in the initial stages of it. We're in kind of the initial thoughts in terms of how and what that looks like, but it's been very positive so far in terms of how we've started to position what we see doing, and then for us in our city then to be able to build that under that and within that structure as well. So. So anyway, it's just in the initial stages, but we've had some initial meetings, and as I said earlier, I reached out to Spickers and the Society and the Aboriginal Health and Housing Services to this whole issue of homelessness and the issue of the transition house, and the pressures in our community are growing as it relates to providing health services and mental health and addictions, and I know we've raised that in the past. So I think there's a significant bit of work for us to do and take the lead on for not only our community but our region. And the regionally piece that I think about for our regional partners is this whole aspect of we have some acute care services within our hospital, like orthopedic and some of those things that we need to make sure we build with the regional partners and the regional communities as a whole. And that's how we'll be successful. And when we're all making that pitch to the provincial government and support of Mike with Minister of Health and those components for those services that go on in our community. So it's been really beneficial, I think, over the last 3 or 4 months to get that underway. Councillor Parsons?
Yeah, just a few comments. Housekeeping, I guess. The things that you've raised. Like all of us serve in liaison functions, and we liaise either with Chamber or Mars Zero Park. So, which group does Shaylee liaise with, or is this more appropriately as like a committee that she's heading, or is it a liaison function? I'm just wanting to understand.
Well, I think at this point, the mayor's just kind of tasked me with going out and finding people in the community that might be good to have on that committee. So that's kind of at the stages we're at. And then the mayor's been talking to the other mayors and other communities. So together we're just kind of branching out and trying to see what that committee would look like. So we don't want to miss any aspect of the community. And that's, I think, been a difficult part for me, but we're getting through it. So reaching out to the services we have, and then form that committee, and then I think we'll go from there.
And we've also reached out to Northern Health. So Angela DeSmit as the Chief Operating Officer for Northeast BC, as well as Kendra, who is our Chief Operating Officer for the South Piece. So that's one tangent of it. Spickers is another. It's just doing some kind of plow work right now in terms of understanding what are the needs. There's so many tangents branching from that I think as we develop the committee, we'll start to put that overarching strategy in place and then put the components of the tangents and bring that back through then to say, how are we going to develop this and what is the role going to be that we want to see the committee take?
Yeah, I'm all for the initiative. Don't get me wrong here. It's just in the past we've had some discussions about, let's say the airport committee, and there's been strong saying, well, no, we don't want to go that way. So I just try to understand. We all liaise with a specific group, but here we seem to be doing what? Forming a committee or trying to, facilitate the development of a group? I'm just struggling to understand conceptually where this is, because, there's been much discussion about having committees, and, most of those committees, they've had a history and then they've died, supposedly. There's been a distaste, let's say, for engagement in that way. So if we're moving back to committee, I wonder if we need to talk about that in a more global sense or what. So I'm not trying to be difficult at all. I'm just trying to understand where are we headed.
Right now, honestly, it's more of fact-finding, trying to get your hands around what are the needs, and it started out from my view of physician recruitment and medical health providers, trained nurses, nurse practitioners, physiotherapists, and now it's branching out into there's some more components here, mental health and addictions, and the homelessness and the transition house, and so and a healthy community means different things to different people. So right now it's more that's part of it, is just trying to identify those needs to make sure that we focus on, can't do it all, but where's the benefits of us, and then what's the structure we need to do it.
Yeah. So just, I've got a couple of more questions. Housekeeping then. We have our strategic directions, okay, strategic plan. in light of everything that you've just said, do we need to revisit our strategic plan? Because I don't know where this list articulates this to this. I thought I did, but I can't see it. So just a flag I'm waving there. And related to that, you're going to be organizing a shirt sleeve session around Fiscal Gap sometime. Any dates?
Jim's and I had some conversation about that, and I think that's coming up in...
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I did get some feedback with regards to your participation in that last meeting, and Northern Health is very pleased to have us at the table, to have you at the table. Also, I really appreciate the idea of, the South piece, sort of grouping together and going after some of this stuff. I know Chetwynd has been doing a lot of work around physician recruitment, and so I think that getting together as a region is really the way to go. And so I applaud your efforts on that.
Yeah, even bigger than health, there's a whole bunch of components, right? And Dawn's McPherson from Tumblr's keen about the tourism. And so it's just some real advantages, I think, in building a strong structure for us regionally in the Southeast.
That's great.
Northern Lights College, just wanted to give a quick update. We had a visit with the president of Northern Lights College last week.
Yes.
And so they're continuing to work away on their plans for the trades training facility, and have reached out to us as that develops and those plans come together, that as it potentially could come, that there's some capital works that they want to raise for us, because if it changes that trades training facility, the location of it, I think, was planned to be in the, I'm going to say, the southeast corner where that ball diamond is situated, and I think that's the kind of that area in there. So there may be needs for some different route access, sidewalks, and so the president just wanted to kind of give Jim and I a bit of an update last week on it. It's still working away. They're working with the provincial government as well as industry and some fundraising, and so we're really optimistic and hopeful that that keeps moving ahead. And I just wanted to give council a quick update that we had met with them.
Awesome.
I also had a meeting the other night with the area superintendent of Canadian Natural Resources, and they're so through the migration of evolution of companies, it started out with British Petroleum's BP were out down south, owned the properties and the assets down there, sold out to Apache, and then Apache sold out to CNRL. CNRL are operating that down there. They had their building out on the John Deere subdivision out there, and sold that building to sold to RBS, I think, are in there now, and they bought, and CNRL's office have moved into the one on-site Jocks facility. Had a great visit with Richard as the area superintendent, looking to do some things in our community, and so hopefully there's some more coming, and it was really worthwhile, and the benefits of having our partnerships with some of these folks. The last one I didn't get on the agenda that come to me is there's an issue that's percolated up last week on our signs bylaw, and it come as a result of some of our community groups who put out their sandwich boards advertising their events on Saturday, the farmers market, some stuff going on at Pioneer Village, different community events like that that go on. And the signs bylaw that was developed in 2007 tried to deal with what I think in discussions with Jim was about what's the view of our community, what do we want it to look like, and your sign bylaw influences that. But included in that then comes some components that impact some of our community organizations and have impacted them. Things like you can't put a third-party advertising on the traffic circle, because that's Ministry of Highways. They won't allow anything in there. You can't allow third-party advertising, which is what the farmers market would be doing on property outside their own. And so there's some components there that I think, but we allow garage sale signs anywhere and everywhere. You got some hockey signs that are allowed in certain components and others not, and other volunteer groups that get to advertise and others not. And so to me, Jim, as I say, I've had some conversations with Jim. I'd really like us, if council has a will, to bring back some of this stuff around the sign bylaw for us to do some work on it and revisit it. And I know it's not on our immediate schedule of events, but, you know, and I think about this farmer's market and the group that's at the Pioneer Village trying to do their Saturday morning event, but they can't put out their sandwich board to promote the event. And I think there's some, I said the words earlier, some of these things need to work for us in our community, for the community. And I think there's some stuff that's in the sign bylaw that obviously isn't doing that, and I'd like to request council's opinion on that. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move that we review the sign bylaw to reflect the issue of billboards. Is that the correct term? Sandwich boards, is that?
Sandwich boards.
Is there anything else you want to?
Well, I think there's some components in there. I just like council's, if council are okay for us to, I didn't want to do it. Obviously, I'm not going to commit to it until we're the ones that do it, but to bring it back to council and have some look at it.
Sure, I'd make motions there.
All right. And we can have administration, because they're the ones that deal with it in terms of trying to enforce the bylaw, to give us some of the scenarios that they get tagged with that are obviously impacting our community.
I'll second it.
Okay? Discussion? Councillor Wilbur?
I just, I know the sign bylaw very well, and it just, it bothers me that, I mean, just picture if every single person who had something going on the weekend downtown decided to third-party advertise on Alaska and 8th. You would not be able to read them. It would be littered with every makeshift card stock. It's there for a reason. It's unfortunate, but it is there for a reason. And one thing I look at, the farmers market does have the opportunity. They were asked, and then I'll ask them again. They have the opportunity to get involved with Small Town Love, and that gives us the opportunity to advertise their functions and draw people downtown. But it really scares me if we open up and allow third-party advertising, what that's going to mean. And in saying that, I work I work in that business, so yeah, it's great when people want signs, but you also have to look at the aesthetics of your community, and I know why that's there. And I agree with why it's there, because without it, we would become a littered mess.
So, and I think that's the point to me, is we need to understand it better. And I just want to understand some of the scenarios so that we make sure we guide the view and the optics of what our community looks like, but make sure that there's components in there that we try to develop the process to make them work for the community groups. Councillor Schoen?
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Wilbur. As lovely as it sounds to let these groups do their thing, I absolutely have the same concerns about the community becoming just littered with sandwich boards and...
So like we did with the tow trucks, we put some criteria in, we put some policy in to make sure that we try to guide it. And that's all I'm thinking in terms of saying, okay, if there's some components in here that aren't working and we don't want to work, then we understand that. And that's all I'm not saying I want to change it. I just want us to understand it a little better, because there were some components in there. So if that's the case, garage sales can advertise anywhere, anytime for 2 days before and a day after, and then we go pick up signs for days after. Anyway, Councillor Javetkoff, then Councillor Roger.
Yeah, I think there's room in there for some modifications. I mean, a lot of this, these signs, and I haven't seen a proliferation of them. I can understand the third-party part of it, on lots and stuff, but the sandwich board signs, typically you might get 1 or 2 events on a weekend. They want to advertise them. They need spectators or whatever, and whether it's a hockey game or a soccer event, or it could be a farmer's market or flea market or some type of thing like that. There's got to be room in there to make provisions for that kind of thing, legal provisions. I think if it's referred to administration, they'll probably come up with something that's
I'll work with Jim and administration on it, and we'll bring something back to council if that's the will. I just think there's an opportunity here to look at it and see what it does. Councillor Roger?
Yeah, Your Worship, you said it was 2007 since the last time it was looked at?
I think that's the current bylaw, is 2007.
But we've had discussions over the years.
Have we not reaffirmed it before?
I would have thought so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we've had other things come up, and we've had lengthy discussions around.
So we'll bring it back to council. Like I say, it come up through my social media, and I wanted to bring it back to council to see if there's a will to have a look at it. Jim, do you have any comments?
Just to say, council should not hold their breath for how quickly this will happen.
Right.
We have to work through the directions council have given us. We still haven't been able to get to the bylaw on the color schemes for taxis, for instance. We're well behind. Council's been very ambitious this year. Not within the envelope of their strategic priority commitments, and so we're behind. We're just flat out behind.
Maybe we should have just left the tow trucks alone.
So I understand that you
Thank
don't
you.
want the community to look like it looks when there's municipal elections.
So are you ready for the question on the motion?
Absolutely.
We'll bring it back.
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That's it for me.
Yeah, you should only be able to have
Times
6
10.
signs, Chuck.
Thank you. Diary,
Nothing new on the diary, Your Worship?
consent
I'd rather
calendar,
have none. Ban all
strategic
signs.
priorities,
Nothing new on the charge, Your Worship?
question and answer period,
No one has signed up?
media question.
Nope, I'm good.
Johnny?
I've got several. So first up with the Grandview School report there. I just wanted to get a comment from you, Mr. Mayor. Are you concerned about the stock of affordable housing in Dawson Creek? The stock of affordable housing that could be coming online, both the Site C and LNG looking like they're going to move forward? I mean, to what extent is that a concern for you?
Yeah, I think to me the issue is, do we understand the aspects of what our needs are in our community for of the availability of affordable housing? And if we had the opportunity to work with BC Housing to try to develop a project for low-income seniors, disability, we wouldn't have the ability to do it because we don't have land. And so to me, that's one option that we could consider for it. But affordability is absolutely an issue. There's segments of our community that are struggling right now. I heard at the meeting I was at with the folks from the Spickers and the Naukin Friendship Center that they have families, that are struggling trying to find housing. And so I think you want to be aware of that and try to work to it.
And just generally speaking, the idea of holding on to that Grandview land is that if you were to sell that, it passes out of your control and it would just be dictated by the market. Is that generally the thought of looking at holding on to this land and seeing what could be done with it?
Yeah, I think the council's view is we need to have some strategic discussions about that. Is there more opportunities for economic development for our community and leveraging it for density or for single-family housing or affordable housing? And so I think that was, if we put it out there as is on the land sale reserved, we haven't had that discussion. So.
And this is probably a question for Jim, but does the city have a definition of affordable housing? What that?
Actually, through your worship, that's an excellent question. No one has a definition of affordable housing because it's a different thing to different people. So if you are, for instance, a nurse moving to town, nurse wages won't actually pay the rent on many of the new housing in town. So affordable depends on the income of the person who is seeking housing. So all efforts for affordable housing that I'm aware of in the country, let alone the province, let alone the community, have to focus on a wide range of housing, affordable in from many different lenses.
Right. And so that would probably make it impossible to say, here is the stock of affordable housing in Dawson Creek. Such and such houses are affordable, considered affordable housing, these are not.
Exactly. The only statistics that are used widely have to do with the amount of disposable income spent on housing.
Right.
And but again, affordability is in the eye of the beholder. If you look at those statistics in Vancouver, it's up to 70% of your disposable income is going for housing, yet people are affording it.
Right. And on the bylaw with the new garbage pickup that was passed today, there was one thing I wanted to ask about. There's now a fine for somebody scavenging in trash or recycling. Is that new to this particular bylaw? Something that didn't exist before?
No, Your Worship, that's been in
there.
Previous bylaws.
Okay, that has been in previous bylaws. Okay. Never mind then. That should do it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And no committee of the whole, so we recess to closed. Councillor Schumann, Councillor Wilbur, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we'll take a 5-minute recess while So we'll call the meeting to order on our policy meeting of Monday, June 15th. And the next step in the series of reviewing policy. And so it's been really interesting so far, I think, in terms of moving us along. And so the first item is reviewing the items for discussion, and
Minutes.
item 2.1 is the minutes of our policy meeting of May 25th, 2015 for adoption.
So
Councillor
approved.
Parslow
So
moved,
moved.
seconded. Councillor Schumann. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Now we have the report from Brenda, Director of Corporate Administration, of June 15th, the policy review for today's business. I should pull it up. So, first, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Javetkov.
So we're on item 1, fee for service.
Yep.
Originally, I was thinking that we should exclude a number of the items that we have in there for fee for service, but thinking about it a little further, I'm not sure. I think the purpose of the fee for service is that the city would fund an organization that would conduct operations that the city normally would conduct on their own.
That was my understanding.
And I look at Rotary Lake as an example, and I understand there was an agreement with the union years ago that the Mile Zero Park Society would operate Rotary Lake with under a fee for service. So in that vein, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the list of the fee for service recipients to reflect the services that the city will provide regardless whether or not an independent organization is available to provide the service. So that means that we would have to determine what services that we're covering under fee for service that we would conduct on our own.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think I've got you so far, yep. And so Councillor Parslow, second?
Yep.
Discussion? Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, when I looked at the fees for services and the services that are provided, there was, it was May 29th, there was a workshop with the committee. That's in, it's under public benefit. In general, refers to anything which increases the welfare of the community, is of value to the community as a whole, or responds to a need of general public for the purposes of fees and charges for parks, recreation services in Dawson Creek, and benefits are summarized as 21 service objectives represent categories of public health as defined in the February 13th workshop council and May 29th workshop with the community. I need a history on that, if that's at all possible, because we're going to end up going with this. I'm going to say, if we're talking about user fees and charges, should this not be addressed in with the fiscal gap initiative plan? Because this is, I think that this is going to be part of it, because we might look at it when we're talking about the fiscal gap and say, okay, well, this person doesn't, this group doesn't need any, we don't need to service this group anymore, we don't need to service this group anymore. I don't know if that's, am I on thin ice?
Well, I think to me, if they got the intent of Councillor Javetkov's motion was that the overarching is that these fees for service would only apply if it is a service that the city of Dawson Creek would normally provide, but it's being provided by another group or another organization. And so that's when the fee for service policy would kick in. But if it wasn't, and so I'm not sure how that criteria would be developed, but that's my understanding of. Jim?
Yeah, so through your worship, to begin with, what Councillor Rogers is talking about is work that you did as a council around recreation fees and charges, and you haven't broadened it out to anywhere else. There's been talk periodically about doing that, the concepts of public versus private good, but you actually haven't rolled them into any of your other work. The fee for service started out exactly in the way you're talking about, and that's what the preamble continues to say. These are things that you have self-identified, that if the group didn't provide them, you would provide them. And so you're providing a fee for these folks to do it for you. But it's been a very long time since you reviewed it in the way Councillor Javatkoff is talking about. Instead, you have added one at a time, the Mile Zero Cruisers, for instance. You've added them in because it provides funding certainty to the group. They don't have to come back annually to ask for that funding. It's built into the budget automatically because they're categorized in this way. What they come back for is requests for increases in that fee. But you haven't actually gone through them one by one and decided whether it is true that if there was no car show, you would provide it, for instance. You haven't decided that in a very long time.
And I think that component, as Councillor Rogers has raised through our fiscal gap discussions, as you start to peel it in, that onion in, you start to identify some of those components of your policy of how it affects and impacts your overall financial capacity in the future to deliver those services. And so it may be an issue that you want to identify and address in the long term for that fiscal gap discussion, potentially.
Could I hear the motion again, please?
Sabrina, that's you they're asking.
Me?
Yes. What have you got in the minutes as the motion from Councillor Javatkoff?
Javatkoff made a motion to amend the list to reflect this service, whether or not the organization can provide this service.
I can reread my motion. I did write it. Or
All
I
right, if you
typed
could
it.
do that, that would be great.
Move to amend the list of the fee-for-service recipients to reflect services that the city will provide regardless whether or not an independent organization is available to provide the service.
So we identify this, we identify a particular issue or service.
We would have to go through the list and, okay, so SPCA, for example, they stop providing the service. Would we then take over that role?
Yeah.
In that case, I think we would.
We probably would, yeah.
So,
Okay, so if that motion passes, clearly today's not the day to do that.
no.
That'll have to come at some point in the future in this line of meetings that have yet to be scheduled. But clearly before next year's budget, right? The process would be if you identified somebody as no longer qualifying, you'd want to notify those folk
Give them
that
notice.
they're no longer qualifying. You'd want them to have an opportunity, well, they would, because you have at least a 30-day comment period, but you'd probably want them to have the opportunity to come in and address you. And of course, some people would continue to do it even without your fee-for-service, and some would become non-viable without your fee-for-service. And some, it would be up in the air, like step up and ride.
No. Thank you. So, Councillor Schumann first, then Councillor Javetko.
So, through you to staff, who's falling off this list then with this motion? Would it be-
Nobody at the moment. The motion is to look at them each individually at a future time.
So they're not falling off the list right now, but down the road, Mile Zero Cruisers, for instance, chances are we're not going to be hosting a car show should they not do it.
So you won't fund it.
And the Kiwanis Club.
That's for the band. So all of these things would be individually discussed. You know, things have found their way onto this list, not because, regardless of the preamble, they're not there because you would actually provide the service. They're there because you've decided they're good and worthwhile and this is the right group to provide them and you want to give them funding certainty.
Yeah.
So one of the outcomes might be is you change some wording around the preamble if you decide you're still going to fund the community band, for instance, or the Mile Zero Cruisers.
Councillor Parsley?
Yeah, the rationale in the policy proposed by Councillor Javatkoff, and I seconded it, has always been my handle on understanding what a fee for service was. Certainly within the list, I have real problems with aligning that with some of the recipients, right? They may fit under some different policy, I don't know. But if fee-for-service is what is being put forward by this motion, it aligns with my understanding of it, which comes from the previous term of being on council. And so what I'm hearing is if we go with that, then we would have to debate which fits here and which doesn't. I mean, I notice in the notes here around the Dawson Creek and District Stables and Arena Association, around the maintenance and use of barn facilities. And maybe that fits or it doesn't. I'm not sure. I just have a hard time thinking that a municipality would provide facilities to board horses or keep cattle, right? So
hard as it may be to believe, we spent about what, $8.5 million on that. On that facility, and it was actually the genesis of the idea.
Why they started.
It was the first thing we committed to, was those barns.
Yeah. Anyway, under the fiscal regime and purposes of city corporations, I have a tough time with rationalizing it there, for sure, under this policy. But so I'm understanding that Jim's saying that if we pass the policy, then we'd, at some later date, go through each of these. Is that right?
And staff would provide you the history as we understand it of each one. So, I mean, you have, it's not a well-constructed policy. You have items in there like tourism development where 100% of the funding is aimed at, is provided through the policy, and it's aimed at a certain set of objectives, and it's provided with paid staff, not volunteers. You have other ones like barn users where the totality of their operation is far more than 10,000. 10,000 is a very small piece designed to be turned into capital works at the facility. So, and you've got everything in between. So you don't even know what the reaction of a group would be if they were losing that 10,000. Would Stables and Arena shut down if they weren't receiving that 10,000? Then would you pick up I believe you would pick up operating Lakota Center, because otherwise what are you going to do with it? You don't know if Mile Zero Cruisers, if that money's critical. You haven't had any of those discussions.
Councillor Javeco?
Yeah, I guess, you know, these a lot of these fees have evolved since Fair Share came on stream. And, you know, looking back at what happened there, it just seemed like the floodgates opened. And we had people coming for grants. I mean, they would just as soon make one trip to the city and get the money they need instead of going out and doing fundraising or go to the community at large. So it's evolved that way, and this is from years ago. That's the way I feel about it anyways. And you know, the other thing we have to consider is some of these organizations are being funded to a pretty significant level in other ways, like in kind, for example, the Stables and Arena Lakota Center. I mean, we're paying, it's our building, we're paying for utilities. There's a significant cost there already. So, you know, that has to be considered in the discussion. That's why I don't think it's fair to start picking today, you know, without the information.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Parsons?
Another, similarly, you know, Step Up and Ride Society, which provides wonderful service in the community that I never, ever want to see lost. But, you know, they're not you know, a number of them are paid employees. So again, this needs to be looked at somehow, and we see where things fit here under a fee for service. And I mean, why wouldn't Step Up and Ride be part of transportation? But anyway, that's just where I'm going with it.
Nope, I think it's perfectly legitimate for us to review that. What's the purpose of fee for service? And who fits in there? And it's a great discussion. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried, thank you. Debt policy, debt management policy. So we've had a number of components or questions and some response provided by Shelley. Councillor Schumann?
I move that we reaffirm the debt management policy.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion? Councillor Rogers first.
I was looking at the percentages on that. When our debt servicing reaches 15%, then council wants to use caution in future decision making. What's our debt percentage at right now?
So there's 3 numbers on that.
Yeah.
Do you know them off the top of your head?
No.
Oh.
But there are 3.
I thought maybe you did.
There's general
Here you go, Shelley.
water
There's
debt
3.
and there's sewer debt. and they're different
Yeah, I know
numbers.
there's 3. I wrote the policy. The general fund is about at 8%, 9%. The water fund is the highest. It's probably at 16 or 17%. So it's over. So council had to waive the policy to go over.
Which we did.
Which they did. And then the sewer fund is going to come in at about 16, 17% once the sewer trunk line comes on.
Again, council authorized that separately.
Yeah.
That's right. But overall, on a consolidated basis of the whole budget, it's still under 10%.
Still under 10.
Yeah.
Councillor Parsley?
Yeah, I support maintaining the policy as it currently is as well. It serves as a like a light switch, if you know what I mean. When we start hitting a certain point, we have to really think what we're doing. Well, we should be thinking what we're doing at all times, but you know what I mean? It's an alert.
Yeah, through your worship, I'm just going to comment because when you look at these indicators, at least annually, probably every time you borrow, it's giving you an indication of you do have to increase fees if you can, or you're going to take less flexibility, which means you're going to take costs away from service. That's really what it's about. You want to maintain some consistency of your debt servicing. If you have a 1 or 2% increase in the interest rate, that's going to affect future borrowing, right? So you have to address that at the time that you're making the decision to borrow, not after the fact, right? So it's just giving that information to council every time a debt borrowing decision is made. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Capacity on short term is $50 per population, so 13,000 at 50 is 650.
Yeah, somewhere
That's
around
the
there.
amount that can be encumbered just by a decision of council.
Right.
Without having to go to the citizens for approval.
And repayment is 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't used that in some time.
Yeah. And, but it's another instrument that I think is just for information that also exists within the city. And so for me also, when I look at it and say the 15% policy we have in place ensures that we stay away from that, or at least understand the implications of our regulatory levels, that never get into that situation where you're at that 25%. Thank you.
These, your internal debt management policy imposes limits on you that are quite a bit lower than the legislation. You've made a decision that the legislation is too risky, basically, for your taste.
Yes, we did.
And certainly the recent agreement with the Peace River MOU now allows that long-term planning to exist now in terms of 30 years or 25 years, where we had 3 or 4 2 weeks ago. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item we have was the grants program. Councillor Javecka?
I'd like to move that we eliminate the grants program, as community groups can seek funding from the greater community. And if we get a seconder, I'll speak to that as well.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Parslow. Go ahead.
So you can see by the chart there that that's in the report what I was talking about, the level of grants, you know, from 2007 up till now. I think there was a recognition that it was kind of the stop of first choice once the fair share money was available. And over the years, we've tried to control that by making it more, or putting more requirements in for applications. So, you know, there's a long application form, and you had to get it in by a certain time. And my feeling is that, Jim mentioned it a few times there, that if we didn't provide these grants, these activities would still go ahead. The opportunities for fundraising, a simple one like selling the Rotary raffle tickets, where they give you back 40% of the money. Like we've done that up at the ski hill here, and it's not a cumbersome job. It's just, it's a way to do fundraising, and we've raised in the last 3 years over $20,000 by just selling these tickets. So there's all kinds of fundraising opportunities, and I think rather than encumber the city with these grants and requests, and it's almost a distraction because you're always dealing with them, and it's, well, you can see by the size of the policy that it's been an issue over the years. So that's why I think we should just eliminate the grants program altogether, and then it's, you know, make sure that the public understands. And
Councillor Rogers and Councillor Parslow.
I think Councillor Javetkov is right. Only handed out 15 grand in 2013, didn't hand anything out in 2014, and nothing so far in 2015. There's lots of ways of making money out there if you want to do fundraising. And I think that that's that's something that if it's a community thing, I think that should be it should be taken care of by the people that are wanting it. I just look at the city having to pay for other things is well, we haven't been doing it anyway, so why have the policy anymore? Sorry.
Councillor Parslow.
Yeah, one of the things that one of the problems facing quite a few municipalities is their whole grant regime culture is just out of control. Fort St. John is an example. And so I congratulate the previous councils that realized there was a problem and worked to make the grant application process more stringent. This is the whole grant thing. I mean, you know, many councils find it very difficult to say no to anyone. That's a reality, and there's all sorts of requests to come in. And so I think just reflecting on what I learned in Edmonton, you know, that you're going to deal with your asset management and fiscal debt, you need to have a focus on the pain of discipline. And I think that Jim has said this many times, that really people shouldn't look to municipal governments to do everything for everybody, and even to take on responsibilities for some things. And so I likewise, you know, you have raised all sorts of money. This is a great community for raising money. I think the example of the library we just heard this morning, what a great pat on the back for the community. And so if you plan, and if you have a good project, it's very easy for community groups to raise money for a new initiative that requires some capital money. There's a problem if you're looking for operating purposes, you know what I mean? That's another story. But for, you know, like shelving or like the Northern BC Winter Games, one-shot things, you can get your money. So that's why I support this strongly.
Thank you. Cheryl and Councillor Schumann and Councillor Wilbur.
Yeah, so I see on December 15th, 2014, we made a motion to council resolution to update the grants policy in 2015 so that the underlying objectives align with the city's user fees and charges for publicly provided parks and recreation services policy and any other current policies and principles. And frankly, rather than eliminating grants altogether, I would rather have the opportunity to look at the grants policy and see if we can't do something with it to make it work better for us.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
One, I would be more inclined to take staff's recommendation so that those that are getting a break in other areas aren't able to apply for a grant. But I also look at the grants as a way for some organizations that do care for some of the facilities we have, or maybe are leaving a legacy project, that's a way for us to contribute to them. And there do come times, and a lot of stuff comes forward at the same time of year, where fundraising isn't always so easy, and someone that works at a business whose door is constantly banged on every day, you do have to say no, and you have to pick and choose who you're going to support for the year. So I think that the grants program is also a way for some organizations in our community to come forward to improve maybe a facility that they're taking care of or something, not necessarily one-offs, or that they're trying to pay their operational costs and stuff. I don't think it's meant for that. I think it's been really fine-tuned. You know, they can apply once a year. It rotates on where that funding is going to go and who can apply. So I think staff's really streamlined it. I do like staff's recommendation that groups that are receiving a subsidy or a reduction in their user fees and stuff aren't able to apply. So I think it kind of cornerstones it, and we've, you know, nobody did apply over the last 2 years, but at the same time, if someone does and it's worthy, I think we should be able to have that funding there to give to them. So I won't be supporting that motion.
Thank you. So just so we can clear, the 2014, there were $60,000 worth of grants requested and none were approved. And this year, there's $16,220 have been requested and none have been approved. And that's as a result of the policy now that we have driving that result. Jim?
Yeah, so through your worship, the key elements of the policy you have now, exactly developed as Councillor Javatkov says, because in 2005, when the new fair share deal was signed, there was suddenly influx of a lot of unbudgeted money, and the community felt this was a good time to ask, and so lots of money was given out in grants. That 383 in 2007 isn't actually the high water mark. 2006 was the high water mark. But so your policy has three elements. It requires the group to prove that they are a group with financial accountability, that they've incorporated, that they are audited, that this money will be internally accounted for. Two, it requires them to demonstrate they need it. So they have to give you financials. They have to explain you know, how much money they have in the bank. And three, they have to show you that you're not your first court of first resort, that they have tried elsewhere for money, and they are coming to you last rather than first. So that's the effect of that has been most of the applications don't qualify. So on a staff level, when we have a policy like that, it means when a person comes into us and applies, we can look at their application, tell them what's missing, tell them how council will make their decision, and often tell them, you know, you don't have a ghost of a chance. You've got $100,000 in your bank account, you're not a registered society, and you want this for operational, not capital, you're gonna have no chance. You take away that, all I can tell anybody coming in is write a letter to council. And so we'll go from a policy that gives them a reason why they are turned down, and a staff report that says this is why they should be turned down, to it's up to the council of the day.
Yeah.
I would actually bet that your numbers will start going back up again if there is no criteria that focuses council's thinking on whether or not they say yes or no. I get it, that there are some on council who are willing to say no all the time, but I'm 36 years into the business, and the times when a majority of council have been willing to say no consistently are zero. Say no with a reason, which the policy gives you, it's been working fine. Say no with no reason except we don't like you and we gave it to the guy down the block the day before. I don't know.
So I need to ask a question because when the Rotary come in for their district conference and we supported it because we saw it as a huge opportunity, where did that funding come? I thought it was
So
through the
you
grant.
split sponsorships and grants. They used to be in one policy, now they're in two. So you have a sponsorship amount which you spend to advance your profile. Your name is on it. You know, your standard advertising no different than buying a wind shirt with the logo on it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rogers?
So then, what would happen if we had a policy that said no grants?
Well, I think the policy that we have now says, as Jim's explained, is this is some criteria that council developed or was developed through the city that says, here's some of the things that we want. If we're going to give somebody some money, you need to meet this test. And as a result of that, you see what's occurred over the years. And so now I guess, and part of it is if nobody's getting any money, nobody's qualifying, why have a policy? But at the same time, then I kind of worry about what Jim said is, if we don't have a policy on it to guide it, then do we start to see an increased pressure on us, either individually or as a board? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Parsons?
Well, that's just what Mark asked. What if our policy said that City of Dawson Creek does not give out grants?
And do you want
That's fairly straightforward.
Then it would require a waiver. That wouldn't stop people asking.
No.
But then if you wanted to give them money, you'd have to waive your policy to give them to them. Like, say, waiving your policy on tendering to sole source. It happened this morning, it happens. That's what I'm saying, is it happens.
Councillor Parsons?
Well, I seconded this motion, but I know from my experience on school boards and this council that council can overrule its policies and approve things without any real solid business case or anything like that. So I guess I'm persuaded by what Jim said here. These criteria really cause council to think, let alone the applicants. And so just to show you that I can be flexible.
Well, I think it's
I'm
admirable.
tended to think, I'm persuaded, subject to further argument, by what staff has just said about the three elements, because I just know what could happen without, if it's just an open, and council say, oh yeah, well we don't have any grants, but gee, so-and-so's got a nice little project and I'd like to support that, and suddenly there's no criteria being put against it. So I think Jim's got a very, very good point.
I look at it in terms of, you just look at that chart from '07, it's admirable what I think council identified at that point and said, we need to do something. We got a ball here rolling that's gaining some momentum, and the end result has been financially driven some very strong results. And but you want to make sure the policy works. Not only, first of all, it's got to work for your community, right? That's the end result. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I'm going to vote against this and then make the recommendation that staff gave us.
That would
You're
require a
making a big
positive.
assumption there.
Oh, no, a vote.
Yeah, that would require the motion to be defeated before there'd be any room for you to.
No,
You can't be talking about another motion
I'm
yet.
going to. No, I'm not making that motion. I'm just saying.
Well, we're still on the first motion.
When?
Councillor Rogers.
I was trying to hear what she had to say.
Well, she was gonna. She's
wasn't
leaping
making
to
a
the.
motion.
She's leaping to the fact that the
I
motion's gonna
wasn't.
fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councillor Rogers.
I'm good.
Any further discussion? Councillor Parslow?
No,
One
I
last.
asked the question be put, and I certainly going to support the suggestion of staff involved as well.
Yeah,
Ready
that's
for the
all I
question? All those in favor? Opposed?
Oh, did I vote? I'm against it, sorry.
It's defeated. Oh, let me do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All motion in favor, support. Opposed? Okay, the motion's defeated.
Okay.
Councillor
Can I do it
Schumann.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion that we amend the policy with one change as follows. Not-for-profit groups receiving subsidy or a reduction in rents through the permissive tax exemption bylaw fee-for-service policy, user fees, and charges for publicly provided parks and recreation services policy or some other city subsidy program are not eligible to apply for a community grant through the grants program. And that we also look to our resolution from, what day was that? 2014?
Number 15, 2014.
Yeah, and we look at at that again. Was that clear?
So
No.
that the underlying align with the city's user
Yes.
fees and charges?
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion?
Well,
Councillor Parslow?
I thought the way I read the in bold that Councillor Schumann started off with was the alignment process, that we weren't having double dipping.
Yeah.
Correct
agree
me,
that
Madam Chief Financial Officer, am I reading it correct or am I incorrect?
No, that was, through your worship, that was the intent of the recommendation, is that
Okay.
all these policies are integrated into the, managing the city's finances.
Yeah.
So if you're getting money from this program, you can't get it from this one.
Yeah.
And we do not have to bring it to council before we can tell the not-for-profit group to say, we already received money through this program, so
okay.
the policy.
So you don't need the second part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Rogers?
I'll second it. Or is it-
Yeah, and I think we got it. Seconded was just clarity that the last part that we didn't need. Sorry, Shelley?
Yeah, I just want to add one other thing too regarding that, with other current policies, principles and policies and all that. One thing that council didn't talk about is that as you are focusing on the fiscal gap in the asset management, a lot of money is going into facilities and infrastructure that support these not-for-profit groups.
Yeah.
And that should not be forgotten because there is a lot of investment
Very good
to
point.
support those programs through infrastructure investment. And I think that's really, really important.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. City purchasing policy. Sorry. Councillor Javeco. I was just trying to get to my page.
I thought you were in prayer there, I didn't want to interrupt you.
I'll move to ask administration for reports on contract issuance for contracts between 15,000 and 75,000 as the information comes available to be provided at a regular committee of the whole meeting.
Seconded? For a second time, do I have a seconder for the motion? For a third time, do I have a seconder for the motion? Okay. Councillor Schumann,
I move we reaffirm our purchasing policy.
thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur, discussion. Councillor Javeco?
So does this mean that we don't get information on these contracts?
Jim?
Through your worship, we have actually been trying to make a practice of reporting them out at committee of the whole. So actually, if Councillor Javakov's motion had passed, that would have been hunky with us, because we're trying to. The Auditor General for Local Government, in a couple of the reports they've already done, have spoken about this, especially in the Rosslyn audit, that regardless of where you peg staff's authority, you're giving them the decision-making, but you are still entitled to know. So we have been, since that report came out, we've been moving to try in the Committee of the Whole to get all of these items broadcast to council.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, just for clarity, just the non-verbals from my colleague over there.
This one?
No.
Oh, sorry,
is that the way I understood that you're I see. I think there's been misunderstandings on both sides. The motion is include a report. The decision is not to make. Staff isn't doing. Sorry, council isn't saying we want to make the decision in that spread of money. Right? You wanted a report, and Jim's just said that he is doing that.
Well, that's...
So I'm wondering, when I read now with the staff statement, maybe just for clarification on all sides here, up for discussion at this meeting is the recommendation to include a report to council on bid selection information for the 15,000 to 74,999 threshold. Before awarding or after is unclear. My support for voting against this was I want staff to make the decision, right? So staff disagrees with that recommendation. Well, I understand now, Paul, that you're saying you want the report. Staff is already providing the report. So it isn't...
I could reread my motion and with the emphasis on the specific...
The policy, I think the policy isn't changing. The reporting information is what Jim's saying as a result of the information, and what we've received now is that that's a practice, an operating practice, and so maybe that's procedurally on our reporting matrix that we ask from administration.
So back to first principles, Your Worship. The reason for a policy is to make sure that the actions endure past the current council and staff.
Yeah.
So currently staff are doing that without any policy requiring us to do it. So you're better off, if you like that, to agree to Councillor Javatkov's motion. It's captured then in policy and it applies to everyone, whoever has my job or Shelley's job.
And that's dealing with the reporting mechanism. not the
Reporting
approval.
out at a committee of the whole, the awards that are made between 15 and 75.
Right, thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Well, I think Councillor Wirbel was
Go ahead.
before me. So could I then just amend, so reaffirm the policy with the amendment that the 15 to 75 is reported out in the cow? Would that not do the same thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I make that as amendment.
Good. Seconded? Discussion? Does that work for you? Does that got you? Councillor Rogers, you look like you had a question?
Yeah, I did. I was gonna say quarterly, but
Committee of the whole report, because it's
Keeps
it's
it
a
simple.
formal reporting.
Has it?
yeah.
Because of the way you schedule committee of the whole, the bulk of this is done while you're not holding any committee of the wholes. So the first committee of the whole in the fall is going to have a bunch of these. Was going to, whether you adopted this or not.
Yeah.
And then it could be several committees of the whole into the spring before there's really a need for another report.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Ready for the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. User fees for, and charges for publicly provided parks and recreation services. Councillor Javetkov?
No, I didn't write this one down ahead of time because it's in a couple different, it's one of those motions, what do they call them, that
Omnibus?
yeah, omnibus bill holds everything, but I'll read it out anyways. I'd like to move that we define the family instead of 2 children as 4 children, so it's, or up to 6 children, I mean. I guess it goes from 4 till 6. And then in Appendix B, to add in, or Appendix B leasing, add the curling club with the intent of having, like my interest here is to get consistency between how the city handles utilities for city-owned buildings. And this came up as an issue with the curling club, and I'd like to see it entrenched in policy that the curling club is included in as a city-owned building and the city pays the utilities. And then The C was a question there, so I guess I'd include those 2 items in motion.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Parslow? Discussion.
Well, I can speak to the second part of this. I don't know what Councillor Javatov's thinking is rationale from 4 children to 6 children. But I personally have had sort of a real wrestle with this curling club at issue on many levels. And, I look at Lakota, I look at CAPAC, and I think, well, why is the curling club different from them? And we do own the curling club facility. It's a city-owned facility. And so I'm supporting this suggestion for consistency of approach. I have got a great deal of confidence about the future of the curling club now. And we've got a plan for ensuring that there's going to be good refrigeration there and a good facility. So I'd like to go the next step. And there are many things that I think I could add, but this would just complicate things. But I just share some of my thinking here. I think for any group, whether it's CAPAC or Lakota or Mile Zero Park, anyone receiving it's dipping here between fee-for-service and utility payments, but I do think every organization we are supporting with our facilities and care for those facilities, we need to know that they are engaged in long-term planning. We have clarity that what we're responsible from the point of view of maintenance and what they're responsible for operations. I'm sure some of that's very clear in some of the contracts. Others I'm not so sure of, and this is not a criticism, I just don't know. But I'm just thinking, with these organizations receiving significant subsidies one way or the other, and providing us with services as well. It's a win-win, but I think we should expect them to be engaged in some proactive strategies, actions that see that these things are not dying, that they're alive, that they're growing, that they're inclusive, they're integrated with what else goes on in the community. But anyway, that's why I'm supporting the adding the utility question to
the wholesome of the discussions that we take place here, grants, fee-for-service, fees and charges for Mark raises that whole fiscal gap conversation. I think is going to be a wholesome one as it relates to every component. And I see this as another example of that you look at it and say, okay, yeah, this makes sense for us today, but is it the long term in terms of how we provide services and infrastructure and all that for our community in that fiscal gap? Does that in the long term work for us? And we think it will, because we see it fundamental, but it'll be a great discussion to engage our community and engage each other in terms of saying, how do we make sure that that policy sustains itself over the next 30 or 40 or 50 years? Councillor Schumann, then Councillor Wilbur, and Javaco.
Mr. Mayor, to staff, when we redid our fees and charges thing, did we change, like I'm looking at the family of up to 6 children, did we move it up to 4 when we redid that? And now we're
I believe that's correct.
So we moved it to 4 already just
From
recently.
2. Yeah.
Oh, 2 adults.
Sorry?
It says the fee is a multiple of 2 adults for family.
Right,
Family.
right. So, the fee is 2 adult fees, but the question of how many kids get in free, I do believe you moved it from 2 to 4, but I do know that we get pushback at the door from people who have more than 4 children. We do get that pushback.
Yeah, because they're bringing all their nephews and nieces, and is that what we're considering families? Like, honestly, I don't know very many people that have 6
We
children. No,
certainly, it's
I have
actually not
5.
the cost that causes the issue. It's not the cost that causes people to lie to us at the counter. They're coming to drop in where we have a rule that children must be under the supervision of a family member adult. And so, yeah, cousins are there. They get there, and unless the person at the counter falsely declares to us they are their children, then they don't qualify for supervision, and so they can't come into the pool. So that's what really causes our problem. The bulk of the use of this is at Family Swim, at drop-in. And so there's virtually no dollar impact to us at all. The number of times it'll be 6 instead of 4 is minimal.
Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Wilmer.
The reason I brought it up is because we've run into the issue at the ski hill, and it's not a huge issue, but it's just awkward. Like, you have blended families, and there's not a whole bunch of them that have 6. I didn't find that we're getting, people that are cheating, but we do have those families that have, 5 or 6 kids, and when you go to deal with it, well, okay, which ones are we gonna pay for and which ones not? And it's just not comfortable, and I think it just, it's just dealing with a minor problem. I guess to me it's a major problem because I don't like dealing with those uncomfortable situations at the door.
We'll get it back on the other end because they're sure gonna need 280-liter containers for their families.
Councillor Wilbur. Councillor
I told you I was gonna say, but as a mother of 5, I just asked for the birthday party package, and I have less than 180 liters of garbage, even with 5 kids at home. So.
Councillor Schumann.
So, through you to Jim, so you have to have two adults to come in with those 6 kids. Like, I picture, everybody showing up with 6 kids now, and who's supervising all those kids now? Like that.
A single adult.
So a single adult can supervise 6 children.
Is that what it is? Sort
My
of.
mom did.
Is that what it is in
At a
daycares?
pool.
Is it 1 adult to 5 children in daycares?
Yes, I believe you're correct. But in this case, we're talking about who's responsible for them. It's actually our lifeguards that supervise them.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's, who will be asked if they're misbehaving, who will be consulted if they're hurt, that kind of thing.
All right.
Ready for the question? Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, this one, I wish somebody would have corrected me when we first started off, because this was the one that I mixed it up with fees for service. Nobody helped me. Thanks, guys, for throwing me on the bus.
Gonna swim on your own,
Anyways,
baby.
I figured it out. Anyways, when I was reading this policy, I went, this is the one that got us in all the trouble that we're in. Because I look at the amount, like, I look at our recreation and cultural services, how much the corporation spends on those. I've said it before, you guys all know the numbers. So the amount of times that I've read through the whole policy, and then I read it on Saturday, and I went, this is the one. And I don't know why I've skipped through it a whole bunch of times anyways, but I'm ready for the question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll help you at some point.
And
We'll
by
come
the
to
way,
your,
and
we'll
by
come
the
to
way,
your,
that bus number was 78 to 99.
once you're past your rookie stages, we sell it to help you out then. That's a 1-year term. Councillor Parslow?
Okay, so I talked about the curling club and utilities. Now there's been some discussion, I've lost track of this. So by adding the curling club, okay, to this as an appendix, what are the implications of that?
Well, we already passed that decision for.
You are paying for
We
the
are
curling
paying for the
club's
utilities now.
at least for another year.
Yeah.
But in this policy, that's only an example listed. The actual policy is the building and grounds policy, which is where your decision would be implemented. So if your decision is that you're going to pay the utilities on all city-owned facilities, We would implement it in the building and grounds policy,
Okay.
which is a different policy than this.
And we haven't reviewed that. Is that one come up for review?
That's up in August.
Okay, thanks very much.
Good, thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried, thank you.
So what did we just carry? Is that just the 6, or are we gonna pay for the utilities in all buildings?
And the utilities and all.
Well,
That was the intent of it,
Yeah.
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 but that's coming up.
Well, no, you're,
Whoa, stop the bus. I'm not sure, through your worship, if council was aware of what they just approved, because what I understood was you were paying for the utilities of the curling club, which was put into the budget this year, but if you're doing it on all facilities,
No,
That-
it's, I meant to get it consistent by including the curling club.
all right.
But there are other facilities. we
There
don't
are
pay
other
for.
facilities that we do not pay the utilities on that are city facilities.
Such as?
Well, the library is our building.
We don't pay the utilities, right?
No.
Oh. So, but that's
But we do provide them a book grant. So what I'm thinking is through the budget process this coming year, I will outline all the facilities and what the utilities are and get it from the not-for-profit. And then maybe if you want consistency applied across the board, we can do it.
And we have the
that
review of
way.
the policy in August,
That's
so we'll have a real good chance to be able to provide it then.
Yeah.
So this is just the curling rink today.
Yeah, okay. And the rest we can deal with and
in August.
weigh up everything once you present that stuff.
Well, you know, we do have a listing of all our facilities, and we
Yeah,
can
sure.
actually align it so you can see
Yeah.
facility, utilities, and then look at it in that.
what you're gonna find in that list is the number that we don't pay the utilities for is much smaller than the number that we do. So, for instance, you're paying the facilities at the Memorial Arena, but you're set a fee that says you're gonna recover 50% of your
Yeah,
costs. So the users are paying back to you 50% of that utility cost, which is not to say it's cheaper to operate than the curling rink, because all the other costs the curling rink is covering. So you'd pay all of their utility costs and still be way ahead of the game compared to the arena.
Councilor Rogers?
I sure hope, and I'm thinking, that this is all gonna be discussed when we talk about, when we're dealing with the fiscal gap anyways,
Sure,
because
that I think will be.
tentatively, the way I'm understanding how we're gonna end up dealing with that, my thinking is, I haven't talked to anybody about it, but there's usually 3 things that you pick, and then you build policies around that. So, like, because you're gonna have to reduce some services or whatever. So when it comes time to figuring all of that out, but I just look at the user fees and services being one of the most expensive things that we do, and I realize that we should be focusing on our water, our roads, our sewer, our infrastructure. So I know council hasn't decided this, but maybe I'll just put a little bug in their ear, but the user fees and service charges and the things that we do, that is not sustainable for the city. So I was just making sure that, like, this will probably come up in the fiscal gap as well.
Well, that's what I said earlier, right? To me, the whole aspect of all of the policy review that you do is going to have an overarching view of how do we address that in the long term for sustainable. Jim?
Yeah, it's just not timely to do that yet, because you haven't agreed on what the outcomes you seek from the fiscal gap are. But until we have a meeting where you guys can come together with a whiteboard and decide why you're doing it, what you mean to accomplish, I can't tell whether this fits in or not.
No.
That's right.
I absolutely don't think the evidence of my senses, sitting here for the last 6 months, or any of you, tells me that water and sewer is more important than the arena. If I look at your funding decisions over the last 6 months, the arena is at least equivalent to water and sewer in your eyes.
And that's that overarching kind of view to me that you have to have, right? Good. So have we voted on this?
Yeah.
Not yet.
You want to speak?
I just wanted to ask, is the art gallery, do we pay the utilities for the art gallery?
Through your worship, no, we don't. That was the other one, but I was not clear on the ownership or whether it was through a lease or something, but no, we don't.
Okay.
But we do provide them a fee for service
Yes.
of
which-
20,000,
out of
but I
which
don't know
pay-
how that compares to the
Yeah.
utilities. So
Yeah.
that's where I was saying, just let's take a step back and look at this
Yeah,
in a
right
bigger
on.
picture.
Thanks.
But for
So
now,
we'll-
curling club's in.
Curling Club's in. We'll review the other policy in August.
Okay. Question?
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Okay.
concern that we did it? Like,
I'll tell you what it's.
Yeah, we'll work
you
through this
later.
with you after. You're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, got it.
We'll keep an eye that Dale doesn't create something we didn't agree with.
Item 1 on the agenda, A, and the B was the curling club. And that was the 2 components.
Motion. Where was this?
Got it.
Define the family.
We got her
up to
covered.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brenda, you're the backup?
Council remuneration? Councilor
What does
Javeka?
this mean?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we change clause 4 from will be reviewed in the same manner as senior staff wages to will be increased annually by a cost of living allowance. And I can speak to that if we get a seconder.
Sorry, Shelley?
Yeah, through your worship, I thought we did have a policy that had that already.
No, so
It's just something.
the setup right now is that you increase your remuneration automatically by cost of living each year, but periodically you check with those comparable communities to see if you're keeping up. So there's periodic 5-year reviews to see if you're keeping up with your comparable communities. So if you just remove clause 4, it'll just be the cost of living every year, with no reference back at any point in the future as to whether you've kept up or got ahead.
We're falling behind.
And that's entirely up to council what they wish to do about that.
Well then,
Councilor Javeka?
then I'll change my motion to just take out clause 4,
Okay,
and I will speak to it if we get a seconder.
thank you. Move that we just, we have council remuneration set with cost of living allowance on an annual basis, and the comparables would be removed from the existing policy. Do you have a seconder? Councilor Rogers. Discussion, Councilor Javeka?
I guess I've got a concern about comparing it with other municipalities. If you have a municipality for some reason that has a, for one term has a generous council, and they increase their pay, it's kind of a snowball effect. Like, to me, it's just, that's not the right way to do it. I think it has to be a made in Dawson Creek policy for Dawson Creek, and the cost of living increase, I think, is, it's a simple, straightforward way to go. So that's my rationale anyways.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Further questions? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. 2-1.
No,
So,
Your Worship.
yes?
Everyone who didn't put their hand up
It's
voted
considered in
of the
favor,
motion.
so the motion passes.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
motion passes.
Yeah, that's right, you're right.
I put my hand
Thank you.
It wasn't high enough.
I think I was.
Oh.
Permissive tax exemption
You know, a
policy.
sign of a stroke is that you can't lift your hand.
Councilor
Before we begin
well,
this,
okay, I'm happy.
I have some concerns here, needs some guidance,
Yep.
because I'm wondering if Councillor Schumann and Councillor Wilbur and I have a conflict of interest. Or perceived one. Is
So
the
that is a tremendous point, because I would expect that Spickers has more permissive tax exemption,
Well,
Spickers, Southeast.
Society.
Society Committee.
Yeah.
Society Community has
Yeah.
more permissive tax exemption than any other body in town.
And the other thing is that, believe it or not, I am still an ordained minister of the Anglican Church. Retired many years ago. Was the Archdeacon, and it might be perceived, any ruling I make here, either to be favouring churches because of that association, right? Or getting at churches. You wouldn't believe I've made some decisions as the Archdeacon with the bishop over some properties, and the yelling, I've never experienced such yelling at me from certain people living in this town. Far exceed anything to do with school superintendency. So I'm just wondering, there's a perception there. The one about the Dawson Creek Society of Community Living is
You guys are, I
The-
think you guys are definitely
yeah.
in.
So that-
I'll go yell at him.
So listen,
Yell at me
what
then.
I'd like to suggest with, if with council's approval is, without Councillor McFadden here, it leaves us with a pretty slim quorum on a very significant topic of discussion. And so I would like to move that we table the permissive tax exemption to our next policy.
I'll second
So that Terry can be here so that we have a bigger
all get
majority of
That's
council
fair.
than just the four of us deciding.
Good
a
move.
I want to
significant
yell at
decision.
Charlie in the hallway.
Oh, I,
Moved by Councillor Javetkov, seconded by Councillor Schumann. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
okay.
Is there any other pieces of business for policy?
Getting ready to leave.
Not for this meeting, Your
Be the
Worship.
only one to be allowed to-
Motion to adjourn? Moved Wilbur, seconded Charlie Parslow. All in favor? Opposed? It's
Yes,
carried.
we'll go with the dog.
Thank you so much, you
Good.
guys.
It's good stuff.
Good job.